Among the dense trees there was a crazy battle. Using magic, the girl instantly impressed the monster with a devastating blow of a fist. The thoughts of the man were shaded around the amazing pattern. Everyone who was called unknown, as if by someone's will, invariably found themselves in this city. He himself recently considered it fantasies. Among the newcomers, even ordinary schoolgirls occurred. The steps were confidently approaching the home that lonely stood in the forest. The knock on the door is loudly, and behind him, a decisive call to the owner to come out. There is a unique home in this world, known as Delice. He is distinguished by the fact that, like other places, here the rare profession of magician is flourishing here. Magicians are readily taken for all sorts of tasks, cope well with even the most difficult work. The door opened, and through them there was a gentle greeting for the guy on the doorstep. Kenan, this is how he was called. He immediately met this moment by a joke, noting that the morning had passed. Looking around, Kenan immediately noted a familiar mess in Delice's house. The owner only neglected his hand, grunting that his throat and time for someone's reproach just did not remain. While talking to Kenan in Delice's thoughts, it flashed. Despite everything, this guy really deserves respect. And suddenly Delice's gaze grabbed the girl behind the guest's back. As always, the inner voice suggested that Delice kept away from all questionable adventures. Instantly grasping the danger, repels Ken sideways to prevent evil. The moment has come strongly to lock the door, and strictly demand from them to leave this house immediately. The confusion engulfed Ken. Everything that happened seemed to be incomprehensible. His words broke from his mouth. He sought to get some explanations from Deli. But in response, he heard only restrained. Del truly rejoicing in Ken, because he eventually met the same girl. At the same time, he believed that her familiarity with her family was a careless step. However, Kenan immediately cut the conversation, confidently refuting the assumption of the Dela, and insisting, this girl could not think of his beloved. In general, discussing such topics was the last place in his list of desires. Adding with irritation, Kenan recalled that, like yesterday, this morning is also not going to go anywhere. And all this situation has already been well. Once in an unfamiliar world, Del chose Japan with his shelter. After a difficult resettlement, a number of trials were waiting for him. But over time, he used to the new conditions. He plunged into a quiet and secluded way of life of the ordinary recluse. Finally, after long hesitation, the door opened. The invitation to return came in the air full of unspoken meaning. What is the goal of his visit? Having stated that it was about a girl who was hiding behind his back, the young man could not hide anxiety. She was clearly affected by an adventure. To prove her words, the girl slowly pulled the hood. Among the crowd was dark, like night, hair. In these parts it was considered a real wonder. Deltz became the last who dared to accept her in his guidelines, although his decision or enthusiasm did not cause his decision or enthusiasm. Congratulations on our fascinating performance. With relief, the words were made. Finally, Harun was conscious. Everyone else has already managed to deal with their qualities and skills, but for Harun, these conversations remained a mystery. What other characteristics and skills were referring to the current? Chien A Tsu. The explanation was clear. All classmates are now here. They were preparing for a club session when they were unexpectedly in this strange place, in the epicenter of the call. The concern has increased, because Harun has not yet recovered from shock. She explained that she agreed to replace the player in a football club, and during a warm-up suddenly a wave of dizziness was caught. The world swam before her eyes, and the forces disappeared in an instant. With the words that everything is well, because Haruna came to her senses, a warm smile illuminated her face. The eyes broke out with interest when it came to Haruna's condition, although for Haruna herself, everything that happened around remained an incomprehensible mystery. Suddenly, a stranger appeared in a bizarre dress, silent, but confidently he suggested that you explain what was happening here. By the name of Joseph, Prime Minister of the Kingdom Adelhate, this man solemnly revealed the secret of their presence to the guests. His voice sounded confident. The meeting is not accidental because each of the arrivals carries an unprecedented gift and the ability of real heroes. In this world, there is evil born of dark magical creatures, and only they can stop these dark forces, and in the future, to perform a feat and destroy the owner of darkness. For the elected, Joseph assured, it is time for great accomplishments. According to Joseph, everyone has already shown what he was capable of. The current, for example, started in this world from the combat class and immediately received the 5th level. The rest of the team members were also lagging behind. They all reached at least the 4th level and could boast of impressive skills. Gifted by a rare opportunity to be born at once with the 4th level, such people received a unique chance to touch the highest peaks of this world. They were undoubtedly recognized as true heroes worthy of legends. Classmates were looking forward to her, enthusiastically guessing which professional path and special features will get Haruna. After all, the school has long become an axiom. It is worth choosing a goal, and success is inevitably guaranteed, regardless of the complexity of the task. Matsu is alarming Haruna, warning of danger. Everything that happens ominously resembles the activity of some sect, and the behavior of the whole group gives real hypnosis. Haruna does not deny. This strange atmosphere is concerned, and does not give a sense of security. A light but confident hand lay on the shoulder of the food, and a passionate request sounded, to show their skills without unnecessary delay. At this point, the companion with a smile noted that her journey in the unfamiliar world began immediately from the 5th level. The restless curiosity felt in the soul, as soon as it came to the unique qualities of Haruna. Even before she found herself in another world, her abilities were amazed. In many spheres, there was a glory of her achievements. Thanks to these talents, she well deserved all the preconditions to become a true heroine. That is why she was entrusted with a divine stone, an artifact capable of revealing and evaluating hidden personal characteristics. The crowd prevailed in tense expectations. All the views were addressed to Haruna, waiting for a miracle. She confidently lifted the divine stone to the palm, and at the same moment he flashed a dazzling light. Currently calling Haruna to hurry, the girl barely restrained her impatience to find out her characteristics. In response, Haruna assured that she was not going to waste time. On the stone's surface gradually appeared strange inscriptions with characteristics. Each present eyes were surprised. Such a sight was knocked out of the track. Haruna's question was in the air, but Del narrated her story without letting it. The slight movement of the hand on the nape, a short nod, and there was a confidence on the face. Everything is clear. The words of the interlocutor remained unclear to her. Del obviously missed the most essential of her story. His focus wandered somewhere nearby, and all the girl said passed past her ears. None of her questions deserved the answer. Del was limited to a deaf grunt that he should be cleaned again in the old Joseph Smith. The situation was finally cleared. Haruna's weakness was revealed in the eyes of all, dispelled the illusions about her strength. The class immediately began to catch from it, and the competition in mockery quickly grew into a frank contempt. Joseph also felt bitter disappointment. He expected from Haruna completely different, although justice for the sake of justice was lying on himself. It was he who pulled others into this dirty business in order to avoid responsibility. Rescuing his own skin, Haruna was sent to the Dell without hesitation, and now we had to rake the consequences of such careless action. Kennan's gaze, filled with surprise, forced the Dila to ask if he had made a mistake. In response, Kennan assured that everything happened exactly as Dell told. Noting their role in the team, he emphasized that most hoped to get answers from the leader. She still instantly directed them to him. The surprise of the Dell was obvious. Kennel would continue to be silent, humbly fulfilling her disposal. The words were not answered in the air. Kennel did not respond, choosing silent indifference. He confessed that the leader of their company is a real nightmare, and contradictory, its instructions lacking in spirit. The awareness came to Dells immediately. While the commander with the associates increased the power of the hero, Kennan seemed to be going to find a way out of the crisis. He seemed terrible to him himself. To translate the whole class into a parallel world, it sounded like an absolute adventure. That is why Dells appealed to Haruna to open his divine sphere and to get acquainted with its properties. In anticipation of his request, Haruna and his friends kept breathing, already imagining how Del agrees. But instead of the long, awaited consent, they only heard a quiet advice not to hurry and carefully consider everything. For a long time, he noted, he did not give promises to become a mentor. He was only interested in her abilities. In response, Haruna hesitantly handed over the stone to the goddess, holding it firmly in her hand. You can only view your own characteristics with a special artifact, the goddess stone. It is he who opens his eyes to his own abilities and profession to the one who holds him in his hands. Everyone who falls into this world receives a stone, and at the same time acquires a divine blessing. But she did not hide her surprise. The blessing that Harun was endowed was almost scanty. Bruno belonged to the first-level magicians. Nothing unusual was hidden in her power, and all the characteristics, except for the magic itself, remained at a minimal level. Only one. It was impossible to believe that this is really happening. Dell gave way to even ordinary rural girls, and Joseph, according to the canon, shared this opinion. The girl has long resigned with her own imperceptibility and insane, making sure that her abilities are worthless. Imagine that the teaching door will open before her. What peaks would she want to conquer? Perhaps the heart of a village girl is full of a fervent desire to gain recognition among the people around her. Or maybe, as Joseph noted, dreams of glory on the battlefield, challenging the Lord of Darkness. The images of friends have deeply affected Harun, and in her heart, the relentless desire for revenge. The question was a bold answer, the desire to grind their bones into gunpowder. Hearing so stunned by bells that she froze from surprise. The anticipation of the meeting was fascinated by the spirit, because the idea of returning among those who left was kept in tension. It should appear in the image of those who have surpassed each of them. It was thought that if they rushed to a good head and began to be pleading about revenge, it would be perfect. Inside the confidence is, that's the way everything will happen. The path of revenge, after all, became her choice. But for Haruna, this idea had a completely different color. In her eyes, everything looked rather like an exciting game, not a real-life calling. From a young age, it was buried in her desire to overcome the strongest rivals. Despite the fact that its name did not sound all over the country, she did not miss any opportunity to try herself in various tournaments and competitions. At each of the tournaments, her unexpected achievements were amazed at all present. In the last world, glory and popularity have enveloped her name, but recently the bitterness of one, relentless disappointment has settled on this glow. Finally, the perfect moment for revenge. Those who have ever mocked her unusualness, except for a devoted Chinatus, will now feel fully felt by what she is capable of in their retribution. Imaging enemies to bruises, the girl is filled with loud laughter, enjoying their defeat. It became clear what Harun was so persistently. Her true desires were revealed to Dell. The image of this girl immediately began to seem to him incredibly exciting, even mysterious. Meanwhile, Harun almost shone with delight, already imagining how Dell invited her to become his student. Wills strongly rejected the idea of taking Harun into his students, declaring it without any hesitation. His categorical position was caught by surprise, and Kenan, causing them a genuine surprise. The recognition of interesting and ambitious features of Haruna has been performed from his mouth, because now he is too passionate about his own affairs to see some benefits for himself. Haruna's thoughts of determination and readiness for everything were not expressed. Kenan suddenly snatched her attempt to prove something. Delov should be careful about the girl when similar words fly out of her mouth. However, Haruni is aware of it. It is better to hold back the promises that are difficult to follow in the evening. At this moment, he grabbed Kenan at this moment and asked what nonsense he had just expressed. In a determined tone, the girl cuts off the conversation, insisting that she is quite capable of coping with all household chores, cleaning, washing, shopping, and most of all, with cooking. Once upon a time, her culinary masterpieces invariably pleased the brothers. Haruna warned, it is necessary to mix everything before making that decision. Like, under the leadership of the Della, nothing good will work. Only you will get problems on your head. Such a statement has been aroused by a joke. The fists and the sharp word fool became his answer. Haruna heard from him that she made a brilliant impression, and despite it, he warned, his training is known to rigid. In addition, the girl voluntarily promised to take care of all his homework. With such a busy schedule for at least a moment of rest, there is no hope. Harun confidently confirmed her consent, as she made the final decision even earlier. The girl will send all the determination to hard work in order to do the plan. No obstacle will stop it in the way. All its power will send a sprout to overcome difficulties. The tireless determination to step forward has become the true meaning of life for her. Deep confidence that tireless efforts inevitably give a well-deserved recognition encourages it to act. One and only thought swirled in her mind. At that moment, the man noticed in the depths of her boundless, empty eyes an unclear flash, and in a moment the view, along with the expression of the face, became once again everyday and familiar. Haruna asked with interest whether she often has to speak so simply and sincerely. Easy laughter on her lips and confessions that she is really naive immediately dispelled any doubts. Her tireless optimism caused a tricky smile, full of warmth and admiration. Delice said without hesitation that this option was completely liked, and he was ready to take Harun under his wing. Harun did not even hope such an instant consent. The surprise literally caught her suddenly. The warm touch of the Delice, which was gently spent by Harun's hair, became the silent approval of her words. But in a moment, his face became serious, and the mood changed sharply. "Get ready for hard work for a whole week," I warned strictly. "I will not lower your eye a single day." Finally, such training will help Haruni become stronger, and perhaps one day even surpass their classmates. Haruna's determination does not know the boundaries, because she is ready to take any household business. Her aspiration made the impression, so he decides to give her asylum, however, only temporarily. If a week's passion for a week to prove her advantage over classmates, the road will lead Harun to a city where, thanks to his attractive appearance and good health, finding a job will not be a problem. At the same time, the request was not so mysterious at him immediately struck the slap in his face. Today he has opened many new facts about the canon, including the true attitude to him. It was asked to introduce Delice again. She turned to him with a gentle smile. Delice did not object to this. Despite the rather modest living conditions, the joy of now being able to see daily outweighs all the inconvenience. Delice also has the opportunity to finally introduce himself. Delice Fahrenheit is this name that is an exceptionally gifted magician that is not inferior to Haruni's skill. He, like her, is well familiar with the laws of witchcraft. How to turn to him, they were left completely at the discretion of the girl. Her choice fell on a simple and respectful teacher, and this new role has given her a special joy. It's time to get acquainted with her. The girl's name is Katsuragi Harun. Her name is Harun, and the hieroglyph Haru in this name symbolizes spring, a constant search for a new one, and a desire for change. The energy of the experiment pulsates in her character, because it never frightens unexpected discoveries. Gela wondered in Karin's how far she is ready to go for the purpose. Karin replied that she gave all her strength. In the words of Gela Harun, she promised to lay down to the limit. In response, the man noted that the workout starts, though it is shaking immediately, but first you need to provide her with a separate room. The former resident lived for some time for free, so the room remains unchapur. This is Haruni, and will have to bring to order before settling. The girl quickly understood everything, but on the way to the room faced the stationary towers from old books. Without general cleaning, there is no way to do. Now the girl is just Har for him, because to pronounce her whole name seems to be an enormous task. Harun did not deny this new appeal. In the meantime, Delice is already waiting for a considerable stack of reports on the table, so it's time to plunge again. The long-awaited moment has come. The Del GT reminded how skillfully Haruna is managed with homemade hassle. Hardly supporting her, already by lunch, they turned the house for the example of perfect purity. Although she had difficulties with the role of the student, but the hostess from Haruna, just for the envy of everyone. After completing the shower, he sincerely thanked the Delice for the warm reception. It was at that moment that Delice was convinced that he did not feel any feelings for Harun, because it could harm the reputation of the entire detachment. But it was much more complicated to push your own interest in this girl than he had hoped, and she reported her intention to cook lunch and asked in Delice in which corner she was holding food stocks. In response, recognition came, usually costing ready meals. With a touch of dissatisfaction, Haru stressed, "It is impossible," and assured that tomorrow before training, she would inevitably get out for purchases. It was impossible to believe that all these diverse food appeared on the table thanks to the efforts of Haruna. Thanks to her memory, the simple pleasures of this world came to life: rice, eggs, and even tar. When Belle first tasted the dishes, the taste exceeded all his expectations. In the meantime, Harun hurried to stop him, reminding him that he was in no hurry to take food from the table. Ragi Harun, together with her classmates, suddenly got into the mysterious world. The magical kingdom of Adelheid. Unlike the comrades who received incredible strength, the girl got only a modest fate of a simple peasant. The royal authorities entrusted the care of Harun Delove, a mentor, under whose giving the girl began a new path in the role of a student. Del confessed to Haruni. He did not hope that she would demonstrate such a skill in domestic affairs. The words about the workout were spinning in the tongue, but Harun had already milked, leaving him a chance to break the silence. Impatience has grown. It would be more likely to return to practice. However, Bells, leisurely eating, politely suggested to give him a few minutes, and so far advised Haruni to refresh the theory in memory. In the end, Harun realized that the training did not meet her expectations. Instead of a strict test for the body and spirit as she imagined, everything was reduced to simple classes. Bells lightly noticed that the witch was not needed such exercises. However, a decisive girl expressed a desire to learn military affair and even wondered if she could change her profession. Hearing this, Bells was indignant. Such a statement, in his opinion, was a real disdain for the master of magic. Haruna, having realized her mistake, immediately apologized for an awkward question. That is why Haruni needs to master all the knowledge thoroughly. Having mastered a new body, with him, the hero also receives divine commitment. He opens the language of this world, as well as the ability to see his own characteristics. The screen has a profession, key properties, and skills. With each subsequent level, the path to development is complicated. At higher levels of lifting has been taking a few months of hard work. For growth, it is necessary to win the monsters. The task is extremely dangerous. Particular attention should be paid to the development of the profession. But how exactly to raise its level? This question remains a mystery. Expanding your own skills requires practical experience. The choice of skills remains you, but the number of cells for them depends on your professional level. Particular attention is paid to the marks. Skills available regardless of the profession chosen have a white rhombus near the name, while professional and specific abilities are marked with a black rhombus. For a magician, for example, it may be the possession of a water, fire, or other magical schools. In order to raise the level of the profession, you will have to improve the appropriate skills, and in order for the skill to become more sophisticated, it is necessary to gain enough experience in this field. Yes, the sword is gaining momentum through numerous workouts and duels. The culinary talent is honed by every new dish created. Following this news, Haruna suddenly made a rage. Del instantly captured her weak place. The theory has always become a major obstacle for her. Before being among the outsiders in the tests, Aaron was not upset. The most pleased her sense of movement and speed. Hella's thoughts cast an ironic look. It is probably not worth bragging. The smile shone on the face of the eating, as soon as she heard that practical exercises were waiting for them after lunch. Having finished washing dishes and dressing in a sports uniform, carefully brought from the palace, Harun moved to the garden, where she was waiting for such a long-awaited practical training. Having gone to study, Garuna suddenly noticed how far they had moved away from their home. Asking the location of his garden, Garuna was surprised to open for herself that the garden was considered to be the whole surrounding area. It turned out that they are far from the castle, surrounded by silence and distance, not to find any housing. The powerful magic barrier covers the whole territory. It is almost impossible to penetrate here, and no sound will slip beyond this shelter. Ideal conditions for self-absorption and training dominate. Finally, the journey led them to this place. The Dell, full of confidence, said, "That is where, among the green garden, Haruna is waiting for new skills." Haruna was completely surprised. She did not expect such a turn. The Dell noted that Haruni should not just improve their abilities. Only those who are given practice are waiting for real progress, and not just learning the theory. Haruna shone from these words with admiration. She sincerely agreed, they say, the study through the experience. It was her element, and thanked Dell for such a chance. In response, Dell had fun that she was almost desperate, and fortunately, Haruna's prayers saved her. Focusing on the essence, the Dell asked Garin what kind of martial arts would best reflect her character. Having declared absolute confidence in his own martial arts skills, Garin would prefer hand-to-hand combat. A short pause for reflections, and the Dell, without hesitation, crosses a hand-to-hand fight from the list of priorities. This choice surprised Garun. Interested, the girl asked if it was allowed to give up this skill so much, especially given that only 2 slots were available. Moreover, the wrong choice, especially without magic, can subsequently turn into unpleasant consequences for the future. He explained that Haruna should first determine the choice of magical skills, so it is better to postpone one slot for this opportunity. At the same time, talented in the martial arts, the girl should continue to improve her own strengths. The illumination came at one point. With a lightning speed opened a window of characteristics, and in an empty cell instantly inscribed the skill of hand-to-hand combat. It requires that they have been tried in practice right now. It is necessary to concentrate all the forces, gradually plunging into the depths of your own consciousness. It is said that true skill comes only with experience. In vain exercises will not be successful. Only painstaking work opens the path to perfection. The skill does not grow in a moment. The path to skill always takes time and effort. The confrontation without weapons obeys the same laws as the art of owning a sword. Consistent training of strokes and persistent haunting of them inevitably lead to considerable success. As soon as the first blow came, the information panel instantly broke out before Haruna's eyes. Without a second, the girl called for the help of the teacher. Delice heard the news. The level of her skill in the melee has grown to the other. However, Delice met these words with no confidence. Harun was asked to transfer their divine stone. I wanted to consider its current characteristics closer. Checking the artifact, there was a unique property that consisted of two different aspects. Achieving the second level has become a real breakthrough for her. Rarely anyone can make such a jump in such a short time. Interest was full of interest, asked Haruna how she succeeded. However, she only shrugged her shoulders. They say she made a normal shot, nothing special, and everything else happened. The ears did not want to believe. By all the rules to raise the level of skill, we had to withstand at least a dozen sparring or participate in a real battle. However, progress is not done. This has not happened yet. Wondering me, did it look like a workout from the beginning? It seems that victory for her is a prerequisite not only in the martial arts, but also in any true battle. Victory for Haruna is above all, so she throws all her strength without sparing a single moment. The defeat is painful in the heart of Haruna. However, instead of breaking, the girl is only stronger and hardened in her own stubbornness. The desire to take revenge gives her wings, forcing her to return stronger every time. Finally, this impression gives an endless pleasure. Only by giving way to the work, it is possible to revive its true content. Otherwise, all efforts will lose their weight. Suddenly, another side of Haruna opened. This girl tirelessly balances on the verge of possible, without sparing neither her own strength nor spiritual equilibrium. Her commitment makes a powerful impression. She noted that along with the skill in hand-to-hand combat, auxiliary qualities have improved: endurance, strength, and vitality. The incredible speed of progress stunned me. It was not even believed that in just a few days a week could reach the end much earlier. Having said that she would do until the evening, the girl decided to return to training again after a short break. From now on, the mentor has officially recognized her with his student. The incredible news did not fit in the head, and the heart was crazy in the sinus of anxiety. Having stated that until the workout continues, he will prefer a holiday in a cool shade. In the meantime, Harun continued to hone her skills persistently and vigorously. A few hours passed, and hard workouts of Haruna finally came to the end. The vicious look slid on the divine stone of Haruna and saw a sincere passion. Before him, the true depth of her unique and fascinating personality opened. Asked if Haruna's workout appealed, the interlocutor listened carefully to response. The girl confessed that as soon as the body went into motion, an uncontrolled rage broke out in her breast. After this workout, there is a feeling that it is possible to turn the whole mountains. The incomparable wave of capture envelops her with her head. The words were deep on the sacred stone. Her skill in the melee reached 17th level. Delice was hardly aware that she could rise so far in just a few hours. It is possible to reach such heights only, tirelessly destroying the entire hordes of monsters from dawn to late night. And even with such incredible efforts, success is not guaranteed at all. Again, feeling the rush of strength, turning his healing magic to Harun, could not but admire this incredible art. Thoughts returned every now and then to how great to have the ability to heal others. The healing brought Haruna a sense of amazing lightness. It seemed to be born again. Seeing this, Belle decided that it is enough for him today. It is worth finishing the workout and returning home. There were many things to come ahead of her. At home, it was necessary to arrange, to eat, and to adjust to a new stage. It is then that Belle will proclaim her with his student. The events swirled, and Harun did not hide as a surprise from how easy and quickly all around. The news of the reduction of the probationary term was satisfied, But at the same time all this seemed almost false, as if it were a joke. Belle, barely smiling, confirmed her suspicions. Only words were not enough for true dedication. Recognition is only the beginning, not the end of the road. Using a unique ability, the young man opened a status window to Haruna, which immediately appeared just before her eyes. A window of choice flashed before Delice, to become a student. The guest explained, it is not a gift for farewell, but rather a ritual of dedication for a future student. The new skill is similar to the contract, but even for the refusal the girl is still waiting for lessons. Delice's gaze slid to Haruna. What will be her choice? There is no point in doubt. Fleece made her choice without hesitation and willingly agreed. In response, the Fleece was carefully advised him not to go so. Despite its simple look, the guy immediately feels a sincere and open heart. Surprising responded to her chosen word, emphasizing that there are no dog features in it, at all. In response, Aaron smiled mysteriously, noting that she faster suits the image of a cat. Overcoming new peaks in the world, everyone first learns basic skills, and subsequently opens new horizons. Similarly, the Del received the gift of mentor and student one day. In his youth, he could not even imagine that he would ever take advantage of this ability. However, time has come, and there was a real storm of emotions inside. Now in this girl he saw not just a person, but his future student. Gathering to visit the washing, the girl asked Delice if she wanted to help her and rub her back. It was at this point that Delice was doubted. Did he choose that student? Haruna, seeking to understand the world more deeply, confessed that the waste of time in the bathroom is not for her. Instead, the girl suddenly invited Delice to join her. He slowly replies that he will talk through the open window, remaining on the other side of the wall. The main thing is that Harun does not lose self-control. Then no problems will arise. With a slight smile on her mouth, the girl emphasized, everything happened exactly as it thought in advance. Del, puzzled with his eyebrows, wondered what the interlocutor had in mind. Smiling, the girl confessed. It was only a test. She wanted to see if he would come out of a reliable mentor. Cleaning for Della always turns into a solid chaos, so she has not invented another way to test it. Perfectly in harmony with him, this trait shaded his character. Only after a sincere conversation, Delice finally swayed and realized the true cause of her own behavior. The fascinating story about the past of this world began to sound, but Harun immediately intervened, frankly declaring her desire to restore strength as soon as possible. She suggested talking better about the fun and interesting things she would like to do. Delice was surprised by such perseverance on her part, but did not argue. In the distant kingdom lived goblin named the Muddy Glow, doomed to grow in darkness and fear. But one day, a passionate desire for adventures lit in his heart, the flames of courage. Taking an old saber and a shabby bag, the miserable went towards the unknown to prove. Even the smallest of the goblins is able to become a real hero. That's the end of the first day of trials for Haruna. With the first rays of a new day, when the air is still saturated with morning freshness, the Del asked in Haruna about the book that he handed her the day before. In response, the girl with the expression of determination on her face stated that she had already fully familiarized with the content of this book. The fascination with this book gave a sense of lightness. Pleasant characters were inspired by sympathy, and the development of events remained surprisingly transparent and accessible to perception. The real admiration was engulfed by her soul when the goblin adventurer, based on the power of dark magic and elusive magic music, rushed to save the child of his bride. Still, the hero trickily remarked, before her not the book he laid in her hands. He announced that Haruna's magical abilities are now beginning. Everything will have to start again. Even the pages of the book, which Haruna flipped, argued that magic is divided into many directions, so every art should be mastered separately and memorized separately. Water, air, earth, lightning, light, and darkness. Each of these forces has its own purpose. When asked about the desired magic, Karun answered confidently and immediately. The choice was obvious to her. With a decisive glitter in Garun's eyes, she announced that the magic of darkness will become her main weapon. She decided that only with the help of unexpected tricks would be able to overcome classmates. The skill in dark magic allows you to weaken enemies and easily hide in a thick smoke curtain. In this art, Garn saw the most powerful power. Last night, Haruni carefully studied the list of her skills, and she never saw no mention of the magic of darkness. This section remained empty. Despite this, Bells insisted. He personally saw dark magic in her skills. The doubts were overwhelmed by the girl, so there was nothing left but to check everything again. Only a few seconds passed, as it was convinced. The magic of darkness really appeared among the skills. Del advised to act in the same way as when choosing this skill. Thanks to the magic of Haruna's darkness, it constantly increased its professional level. Such power made it easy to leave classmates behind. That's what she wanted. Del, although he did not dare to disappoint his girlfriend, he understood that her mana would have enough only one volume. The proposal to move to the garden was enthusiastically to check the power of the newly fictional spell. At the training ground, Del said that as mentioned earlier, the magic of darkness not only detracts the enemy's strength, it gives the ability to control other people's bodies and even influence the force of gravity. It is not easy to possess such magic. This art is full of tricks and incredible complexity. In her words, she sounded confidence. Having mastered this magic, an enemy strove restrictions. You can easily conquer your will. The spells that exhaust the mind and the body are endowed with exceptional power. At the beginning, Haruna was offered to master a simple dark spell called Adva. Thanks to this ability, it could cause a small poisonous ball. The girl directs all the attention to his right hand, filling her with energy, and in her imagination begins to knead the dough as if it caresses a zucchini. For the first time, the spell obeys his will. Magic comes to life in his hands. In response to these efforts, only a skeptical smile flashed. Throwing her eye on the sheet, she noticed a tiny drop of poisonous fluid that appeared on the tissue. Haruna heard sincere approval in her address. The result was really good for her debut. At least she was able to achieve at least some success. Trying again, she tried again. But in vain, no change. The disappointment pushed Haruna to turn to the Del, asking why no energy was felt. Del told Haruna that her mana's stock had been completely exhausted. The girl heard the girl. Confused, she did not know how to proceed. Seeing this, Del advised to return home and continue his studies in theory. However, this decision did not please Haruna. The modest Mage and limited capacity for magic do not allow Haruna carelessly spending. Without careful preparation of the fight will only slow down its development. Therefore, for further growth, it first needs a thorough theoretical basis. Thoughts have not yet had time to come to an end. But some unexplained irritability has already corroded from within. The reminder of the main goal, cruel revenge for classmates, instantly changed Haruna's mood. The passion broke out in her eyes, and she enthusiastically promised to work even more hard to carry out the idea. The third day of the training came, and friends went to the fairy tale Kingdom Adelgate. Their goal was the famous city of Diana, cozy near the majestic castle. With a leisurely grace, Del went around him, as if studying each movement carefully. Fascinated by Haruna, who did not know fatigue in hand-to-hand training in the intervals between the recovery of the monoflakes and delved into the theory, he realized such efforts would certainly reach a new professional level before it seemed possible. Interest forced Haruna to ask questions to the Del. The teacher-student skill allowed her to check her characteristics at any time, so the convenient moment did not slow down. However, not only the condition of the student worked Haruna. It was quite difficult to understand what force her teacher boasts. Interesting look fell on Haruna. Should you really seek permission to look into its characteristics? Moreover, the capabilities of the teacher and student do not end there. However, such issues came to the background. They finally stepped down where they were heading from the beginning. In front of the shop with a laconic and strikingly strict name, Grievous, life was stuck. It is rumored that the whole range here is the real masterpiece of the 5th-level master. However, its relentless stubbornness scares most buyers, so the bench, despite its popularity, is rarely crowded and gets here quite difficult. The assortment of the store impresses with a variety of weapons, armor, and clothing, and also offers the opportunity to improve or even change things to your liking. The wardrobe will be replenished with many novelties that can make an unforgettable impression. A well-known Delice was made on the counter, a devoted familiar. She met with a light smile, emphasizing how much time passed from their last meeting. But immediately the gaze stopped at Haruna, who stood nearby. The whole store was raised by her passionate exclamation that Del appeared in the society of this girl. Despite all the efforts of the Dela to reassure her, it did not fit in the head of Anita, which attracted his attention to Haruna. The sweet and friendly, this girl seemed ordinary, and Anita could not grasp what she so conquered his heart. Del warned the Anita not to climb on the sprouting and be careful with his own statements. Meanwhile, Haru, having introduced himself, discovered that he was studying magic from Delia himself. She added with a smile that she became familiar with the real joy for her. It was hard to imagine that Del really took himself a student. Did not finally come when he wanted to stop. Meanwhile, Danny asked Anita to bring gasoline. The frivolous jokes changed their apology, and the girl assured that she would immediately recruit his number. A man appeared from the screen, and noticing that Del finally gathered with his thoughts, did not hide as a surprise. Meanwhile, Del immediately warned, no tricks. Starting the case, Gan immediately announced that they were waiting for them today to produce an equipment for Deli's student. In thought, Deli has already matured a special idea. He turned to Ghana for advice on his order. Gan without hesitation replied that there would be no difficulty here. However, since it is a personal order, there will be a lot of work, so it also expects to receive some service in response. He asked the Anita to find for Haruna something of the clothes that would have appealed to her, because the girl had almost know her own things. With a sincere promise, he made the assurance he will do everything possible to take care of her as best as possible. The unexpected request of the Del was surprised. The man has sincerely acknowledged he has been using a similar thing for a long time. However, it remains unclear whether this thing was indeed intended for Harun. The girl's confidence was an unexpected melody. I will cope. The surprise was in the look of the Ghana. Did this answer really impress him? Is it possible to overcome such a trial by a common child magician? Del said with confidence. The situation is completely under her control. The real power, hidden by the modest appearance, is able to surprise everyone. After completing the conversation, Dels stretched the necessary materials. He assured that Dels, as always, weave a complete delusion. Hearing Del's request, it was impossible to refuse, because it was about the student's future. At the same time, he noted, unfortunately, the available materials are missing. It will take some more. After agreeing with such a condition, the company went to the guild. It is time to find the right task for the destruction of monsters. Haruni was able to collect the necessary materials for comrades. He did not hide the surprise of Heine when he heard about the unusual approach of the job to teaching a young companion. Returning to Anita and Haruna, Wells felt a surprise in his chest. His gaze immediately fell on Vanite, which stretched on the table and quietly mulicled something, probably plunging into his own thoughts. Aryun was surprised to realize that her sincerity was bordered with redundancy, and she seems to be a little overtaken with hospitality. Despite all the exhortations, Haruna was heart-boughten up to the finals. Del, seeking to help, suggested that she throw her things on her back, but decisively refused instantly. The teacher does not look like a teacher. Haruna said with a smile that there were no reasons for excitement, because his allegedly average backpack hides a real miracle. It looks like a regular bag, but in its depths there is so much space that it seems easily a whole store would fit. Moreover, all things inside exist outside of time and space, so forgetting about worries about place or saving is easier. Immediately, the idea was to use this bag instead of the refrigerator. In response, Tel noted that they were just keeping the way to the guild. With curiosity in her eyes, the rune asked Tel, or is the guild arranged here in the same way as in your favorite games? Incredible adventures, exciting battles, performing a variety of tasks, all this is true? According to her, it became clear. Everything is that way. Today, a real test is waiting for everyone's training. A battle with a monster. The Venture Guild is famous for being taken for a variety of missions, and its cells can be found in almost every country. Each task has a clear time. If it is not observed on the contractor, a fine is imposed. Asked in Adele which structure she plans to be the first, he received a not quite expected answer. Most beginners mostly cover panic fear of the first combat test, the battle with a monster. But Harun was completely different, bold, and unlike the rest. Without hesitation, the girl confessed. As soon as possible, she wants to rush into a fight with the monsters. Dels noted at the same moment. With her psyche clearly not all right, finally she had the opportunity to take up the same task in which no monster will be able to slip and disappear from the battlefield. The registration table was approached, feeling easy. The views of the audience turned to the gray-haired Jala, who was comfortable at the table. Humorous reproach. Is the head of the guild so carelessly snore in the workplace? Jal, wiping his eyes, greeted Delice warmly and did not hide his surprise, especially when he noticed a charming stranger next to him. With calm confidence, the girl denied, "She is only a student, and there is nothing more." Delice was not surprised. "Are all the inhabitants of this city so unusual?" Jala urged to declare the test that he had liked. His warning came. Harun is waiting for harsh, almost Spartan conditions. Will she be able to overcome this challenge? The statement about the presence of only the first level was quite surprised by Joella. The confusion engulfed it, because such a test was created for third-level magicians. Mission: complete extermination of the Ash, kobolds. A collision with a third-level monsters that look like wolves is awaiting your group, but is a subspecies of kobolds. They seized an old, long-abandoned mine, turning it into their own fortress. It should be remembered that these predators are far superior to ordinary kobolds by the level of threat, so the successful completion of the task should be combined with experienced comrades. In his story, he mentioned that although they had already accepted this task, old Jal stubbornly tried to refuse them. Delice explained that Haruna was almost as young as his own grandson, so the excitement of the old man was quite clear. This task was also added the need to pay a fine. It is said that there is even a kind of record for the passage of such quests at the first level, although usually the brave people overcome them with a group, not alone. Delice asked if this is a typical situation. Instead of going to perform the task after signing the contract, I immediately went home. The infinite fingers clenched their fists. We are about to meet the ugly creatures and give them a decent repel. Planning the task opens up a new difficulty in front of the heroes. The required mine is contained in the spine, on the other side of the mountain. Additionally, the question is, it is necessary to prepare the equipment of Haruna immediately. Delice suggests that this room once served as a hiding place for a Bamp, and therefore the right moment came to use his things. The lid of the hidden niche in the floor gave his hand, opening the look of an old chest. Delice turned to Haruna, allowing her to take everything he needed from these things, if she had that desire. It will not take other people's things in your hands. Such rules for her are inviolable. She assured that there was nothing to worry about. This robe is intended exclusively for training, and a magic spell allows him to instantly adjust to the figure of everyone who puts it. With a smile on her face, the girl assured that everything was acceptable for her. Delice immediately emphasized that there is no reason to worry. It is enough to prepare Haruni, and they go in the future. Delicia's bag flew the remnants of the equipment. A few bottles of potions for recovery, and every little thing that did not find a place on the table. Haruna, meanwhile, has already returned. Not having an idea of how to put a mantle properly, the girl asked the Della to help her. There was no shame on her face. Del told Haruni in detail about her task, and the girl moved to the room to dress again. Finally, Haruna felt full confidence in her abilities. Carefully checking the contents of her bag, the girl testified, healing potion and mana, torch, rope. Everything in her place. There was everything that had to have a real adventure seeker. A few more things left nearby, quite suitable for X. Harun could not understand what it was in charge of it at that moment. In her words, a warning sounded. When the nest is destroyed, Haruni will remain only one fate, to look for ore or stones, like it. The need for these stones to create ammunition for Haruna was made in her words. The girl was captured by a striking, through black shade of minerals. The stone lay firmly in Haruna's palms. Its weight was felt on the pads of the fingers. Having assured her forces, she promised to get these stones from the most secret corners of the mind. But she can only do it when Haruna overcomes all the monsters. Without delay, go to the place where an important mission is expected. On the road, a puddle of blood spilled, which made you stop and think, how many more ways will you have to go to a dreamy goal? It climbed into a tree to watch from the branch from above. Among the ashy pavers, this is particularly distrustful of people. In addition to caution, aggression is raging in the nature. In the natural environment, these creatures are hunted by the group, lightly surrounding the prey. However, being alone, the creature loses its passion and returns to calm, familiar activities. The information collected by Haruna about them could well be useful, but if the kobold was alone right now, there was a right opportunity to take the risk and grab it on their own. After flying from the branch, the girl immediately rushed to the attack, not giving him time to reaction. The task was clear, one lightning blow to curb the ashy alien. Again, no rules were restrained when death was so easy. Ancient times hidden in Haruna's memoirs. Harun Makume plunged into the tense atmosphere of Kendo's workout, where bamboo swords are echoed, and a thirst for victory is boiling. She watched with surprise how Haruna appeared in training the next day after intense competitions. A rival, the owner of strength and unwavering determination, came in thoughts. The very support of the Chainatsu brought calm to her heart, allowing them to gather with strength and victory. The rival with an eloquent look came to Haruna after completing the duel, openly confessing, gratitude covers her for the strict rules in kendo. After all, if it were a real confrontation with real swords, her life would have long been endless. The passion for kendo woke up in it only in the middle classes, but only a few years of hard work led to a dreamy victory on the prestigious Japanese tournament. Haruna heard that her fervent desire was making the same impression as once. Despite the fact that the interlocutor has mastered kendo only from the school years and cannot be compared to the achievements of Haruna, every sport was surprisingly easy to give. It was only necessary to try, and it was already sparkling among others. The confession was sincerely sounded. In many aspects, it was unable to level from the Chinatsu. The pleasure of victory over rivals inspires even more devotion to workout. Haruna's blade was lightly cut off by the tail of a rocky ash beast, an undeniable proof of victory, which will be evidence of this clash. The path to the mine was surprisingly short. With the ease of overcoming a few more ash stone monsters, Harun was confidently moving forward. The girl chose not to light the torch. Unnecessary light would only attract attention to her presence. Stepping further into the darkness of the mine, the girl was thinking about a future dinner, which still had to be cooked in the evening. The brain was already planned to return home to sunset. Take a closer look. It is clear that the rails in this place were intentionally spoiled. Haruna's memory was urging the question, what tasks are waiting for her after the test is completed? Suddenly another obstacle was added. More than a dozen ash pavement has already come around Haruna. It would not be possible to use an unexpected attack as before. There are too many enemies, solid traps, and a long way that can be delayed. In this situation, it would be best to deal with all the opponents in one appointment. The powerful cry of the girl was silent, forcing the creatures hiding between the pavement, focusing all the attention on her figure. In an instant, all their views stuck in it. Such bold behavior instantly caused the inhabitants of the pavement of a storm of indignation and anger. The plan was to fight the enemies one-on-one or small detachments. The roads to her twisted like a maze. To get to the girl with the whole flock was not a chance. Despite the external childhood, in the heart, a thin, pulsated, powerful power. The pavers could in no way close a dense ring around it. In such a situation, enemies seemed to her easy target. Of course, some abandoned stone would quickly solve the problem. But this will not contribute to the development of Haruna's skills. Instead of spending her magic, the girl prefers to keep her storage, just in case if she suddenly finds herself in a difficult position. In this battle, the girl gives all her strength, seeking to show the maximum of opportunities. The first onslaught of Kabbalah did not test for her. She reflected it easily and easily. The poor man found himself in the very bottom of the arena. Thanks to this fierce fight, her skill has increased, but the thirst for new achievements did not quench. The fearlessly destroyed all the monsters that dared to attack her. The thought of the need to go down to the heart of the mine to get the tails of the Koboda. General curiosity engulfed the audience. What holds Harun in place for so long? Apologies should sound for them. Harun, to this day, stored calm only in defense. However, this moment changes everything. Now it is preparing to strike. The ashy pavement lost in this fight. Meanwhile, the determination. Harun fell to the very bottom of the mine to collect abandoned tails. The tails were in the hands of Haruna with great lightness, while thoughts were passionate about the past. Familiar combat techniques in this world have become much more entertaining and perfect. Is this her skill change so much? Or maybe, if you strongly improve their skills, will the way to technicians that seemed absolutely unattainable will open? Finally gathering all the wreckage of tails, the girl felt true relief and sincere joy. Thoughts about future clashes pushed her to the idea of mastering the art of dismembering enemies. This will undoubtedly need the advice of an experienced mentor. The bloody face quickly disappeared under the touches of a nose, which carefully wiped the traces of blood. The gift of the nasket weighs especially for her, which is why the type of blood on the tissue has only increased its anxiety. Getting rid of stains and returning things' primitive purity has become an urgent need for her. In her thoughts, her unusual handbag arose. A real treasure trove in which things remain unchanged, no matter how much time has passed. Without hesitation, she hid her nose. In the wall, a dark hole came into the eye, which attracted all ash kobolds. like a magnet. It seems that there is some important secret that they are desperate to hide. Finally, when she was in a hopelessness, the girl was able to find the rare ore necessary for forging new equipment. He was fascinated by the pleasant news. Harun did not even notice how Ben Esh Kobolde was dragged to her. These creatures impressed their size, much larger than all Haruna met before. Memories of the caveat of Grandpa Jella came to life in the imagination of Haruna, and it was such a threat to her now. It was felt that this mission did not promise easy ways or safe roads. Ogra escaped from the pavement and threw a massive boulder in the direction of Haruna, ruthlessly cutting off her opportunity to break free. At the same moment, the daily leader with a lightning speed rushed directly on Harun, intending to attack. A rapid movement, the girl evaded his blow. It became clear immediately that this pavement was the main one among all. The mentor of the Del's mentor was remembered. It is allowed to collect fragments only after a complete victory over each of the opponents. There is no other way. You will have to enter this fight. The opponent that Harun was doomed to be doomed was much more durable than she hoped. Her powerful blow melted, barely touching his dense skin and thick fur. She tried to survive the joints, and in vain. Bizarre anatomy of creatures was not amenable to people's usual techniques. There is no other way. Time for magic has come. The long-awaited moment has come. Now her strength must manifest. Here it is. The long-awaited collision. Once a famous goblin Mudzigawa summoned in the duel of the owner of the darkness, choosing a powerful spell for this unknown. Harun now decides to resort to the same deadly magic to win the leader of Sandflint. Magic in this world is comprehended in different ways. The easiest is to make a magical skill in memory, and access to elementary magic will open immediately. Sometimes, at the depth of the dungeons, there are rare scrolls. Once you use this, you get a new spell. In addition, there is an opportunity to adopt magical knowledge from someone else, and the experience of the predecessor will become yours. It was emphasized that Haruna now has mastered only one elementary spell of dark magic. On that, the girl with a smile remarked, it was this powerful magic force that helped her overcome the owner of darkness. One way to master the powerful magic of darkness is to improve your own skills in the right industry. Only by increasing the level of this skill will you be able to root in the mind the most difficult spells. Mastering the spell of Advas requires absolute return from Harun. Every time it should be called for help, almost until the last drop of his own mana. Listening to the teacher's advice, Harun did not stop spelling, practicing the spell again and again. The perseverance of its fruits, soon mastered the subtleties, and learned how to manage this magic skillfully. The ash pavement was subjected to a mysterious call and as if it were reaching for her. Further, using Advaspell, we directed a deadly poisonous charge that crashed into the face of a stone monster at a frantic speed. Finally, spoken at the monster's nose cut off his sensitivity to odors. If the magic was directed simply in the eye, the creature would be curtailed from acute pain and would be blind at the same moment. The leader of the ghostly stones is famous for the invincible force, and the finale of this fight has long been determined. Harun's powerful sweeping strokes finally forced the stone leader to sway and fall to the ground. Harun's sincere curiosity has watched how long this stone giant would hold on. The exhaustion gripped her whole body. Haruna barely stood. Her legs were tired of fatigue. The fight against the Lord of the Ash Stone monster ended with its victory. Haruna felt overwhelmed by the triumph and the pleasure of victory. Harun felt the forces finally left her body. The exhaustion took her own, and she dropped to the ground powerlessly. The ash pavement impressed with incredible power. Haruna, exhausted through the extremely small reserve of Mona energy, was on the verge. Risky and ill-advised actions were too expensive. The sip of healing elixir returned to her energy, and the forces filled the body rapidly. The blade has already touched the tail of the stone rock, but could not move on a millimeter. Even after his death, the ashy monster retained its former force. Too stubborn effort would cost Haruni a broken knife. The idea flashed. Not to hide all this massive carcass behind and solve the problem. The forces were already allowed to cope with this task. It remains only to get ore. Despite fatigue, it became a matter of paramount importance. The roar strike of the hammer of the ash cobbly broke the wall, and the ore poured out of its injection. Uncertainty squeezes the throat. What step will be the next? Among the trees near the mine patiently waited a Delice. The belief that Harun was about to cope with the power of attorney did not leave the master. Del asked with interest from Haruna about the impression after the first bypass. The girl, glowing with a smile, acknowledged. It was not easy, but much more exciting than she thought at first. The incredible capture of Haruna enveloped. She hurried to share with the teacher, who was able to collect only small pebbles, but she had a whole handful of them. Elle just smiled and reassured. If there are so many, there is nothing to worry about. However, Harun confessed that her pebbles are much lighter than that the teacher gave earlier. He suggested that Haruna was likely to have gained a new level in this task. Therefore, he wondered if she had already checked the staff for changes. During the battle, the notification of raising the level really appeared, but captured by the tension of the duel, Haruna did not pay attention to it. Only now, with apologies, did she mention the missed message. Haruna advised that she was probably lucky to lift his skill to a new level. Dulce politely appealed to Haruna to allow him to get acquainted with her characteristics. In response, the girl just smiled and assured that it is not necessary for the mentor to do this. Suddenly, Windosa announced, Harun is now rising to the 2nd level. The news pleased the girl. Wandering in hand-to-hand combat seemed much more difficult than the development of dark magic, which was so naturally combined with her profession. But Harun did not retreat. All her forces were directed to the exercises. She hardly chopped every blow on solid stones. Along with the increase in style, additional slots were opened. But there was some unexpected anxiety. The bright disk of the sun was slowly rolling to the sunset, painting the sky with gold. Friends agreed to move the conversation to the house, as Harun was waiting for new worries. The preparation of dinner became a priority. The teacher advised not to delay and return home faster. The energy was enough. Dil did not please this thought. On the way back home, Harun, along with Dil, was again plunged into a recent discussion. Looking at her notes, the girl noted with surprise, raising the profession usually opens only one extra place for skills. However, this time she noticed 2 new cells at once. Dil only nodded to confirm her observation. In his own skills, the master and student at the same time, the answer was opened. Congenital skills do not need special training. It is enough to raise level and a little lucky to acquire such skills. Separate slots are provided for such abilities. Student skills only work on those who are at the 1st level of development. The decision to make Haruna with his student in such a limited time was quite reasonable. Memories of the moment when the Del first received this ability is doubtful. Then it seemed to him that it was an unfortunate mistake. Particularly important is the clarification on the impact of the ability teacher and student. As soon as a contract is concluded with this force, each increase in a professional level brings 2 new skills, not 1, as usual. Sincere surprise flashed in her eyes. At the same time, in the heart, there was an enthusiasm. It was really something extraordinary. In addition, she said, it gives an incredible result and benefits. Thoughts were circulated into the halt of opportunity, telling her to choose new, useful skills. Haruna recalled how the teacher praised her ability to cut her skill. This skill impressed the teacher. She thought that the ability to skillfully own a sword would save in battles against numerous monsters, like this knight. Del, listening carefully, confirmed that the skill is truly useful, easily improved, but when growing only affects agility. Just clicking on the name of the skills when choosing is enough to see its effects and find out what characteristics affect it. Haruna's explanation immediately clarified. As soon as it was possible to compare the skill of a Del with hand-to-hand combat as it should, the difference between them was striking. The reasoning about changing the direction of natural magic did not leave it. The thought of improving another school seemed truly exciting. However, Del stopped these aspirations sharply. Mastering the 2 elements at the same time would have to spend twice as many mana, and therefore, the path to skill would be significantly stretched in time. Bruno's energy and passion in the study of theory were not inferior to her passion for fighting. It would not allow such a gap between them. Friends advised her to focus on Jujutsu skill, the only combat equipment that remains accessible to magicians. For those whose strength, endurance, and health do not shine with good performance, this skill opens the way to strengthen the basic parameters. All you have to do is take the staff, and then the wizard's abilities grow even more. For her, experienced in kendo, this solution can be the perfect choice. It was such a tactic that Harun also suggested. To all, they also proposed to learn the skills called Sweet Sleep. Haruna assured that this skill guarantees a real night rest. In addition, Tells emphasized that this reception is quickly recovering in a dream, and awakening turns into a light and fresh start of a new day. Amazing dream that opens new horizons. It is not only experienced passively, but also quite realistically consciously mastering, gradually turning into true skill. The special ability is only activated in the dream phase. It turns out that Harun has the opportunity to improve his skills even when he plunges into Morpheus's arms, and at the same time strengthen her health and endurance. For a melee, it is a real gift of fate. To all, during such a night training, fatigue leaves her body much faster. As soon as new abilities became part of her arsenal, he immediately conveyed this news to her mentor. Grasping her flea, the girl's girl went to the bed, thirsty to feel the effect of a new skill in her sleep as soon as possible. What a relief. She instantly attacked this proposal. But will she be able to overcome anxiety and dive into sleep? Perhaps the peace that the thoughts and body of Haruna will only benefit both. Before diving into a nap, Bells decided to review Haruna's characteristics again. The window with the characteristics opened, and the eyes immediately caught on the alarming fact. The sweet sleep indicator has already reached the 2nd level. The fright pierced the whole nature. Finally, the grueling day of workouts ended. The 4th day of training has unfolded in full strength. This time, Dells plunged into his own affairs. Turning to Haruna, the mentor asked her to go to the city on his own, to send Orthegan and complete the guild task. Haruna confidently accepted the challenge, and promised not to confidence in the mentor. First of all, Anita Path ran into a weapon shop, where the girl invested the collected crystals directly into the palm of the seller. He said with a slight smile, "Despite their modest size, a large number of pebbles balances this feature, so there is nothing to worry about." After a sincere praise to Haruna for a diligent mission, Anita caught her gaze with one of the shimmering jewelry, carefully took it into her hands, considering each face with vigilant interest. The incredible weight of these objects made the Harumi wonder how Haruni managed to keep them without missing. She asked Gain to help with the choice of staffing. Taking up for the preparation of the stove, Sonor asked Harun to wait a little. Surprisingly, the girl covered, "How do others cope with the boar, holding them still, because the weight of these stones was great?" Unable to retain curiosity, asked Haruna asking what she plans to make. Haruna said she said that the teacher did not reveal her almost nothing, so she did not even imagine that she should see her hands. A cheerful laughter escaped in her because her mentor always rejected, avoiding direct explanations. The master turned the remains of ore into a new work, although no one asked for such work. Without stopping on a simple training product, he forged an experimental copy. In addition, he assured that he did not expect any reward. Hearing such words, Harun and Anita did not restrain their sincere surprise. Smiling widely, the girl confidently promised, "Such wonderful help deserves a decent reward." Near Anita immediately agreed, nodding her head lightly, and advised not to give up the money offered if Harun really insists on it. The unwavering in his determination ordered both to be silent. This staff was created solely for training. It was not even about sale, because such a thing is not suitable for showcases. However, since he is already completed, let Harun take him away. She expressed her sincere gratitude to the Ghana, promising to work hard and use this sword to the full to reach new peaks in training. Having used to get used to the sword now, as long as there is an opportunity, he hinted that otherwise, in a decisive moment, the tension may be unbearable. Harun did not realize until the end of the meaning of these words. For Haruna, the weapon shop she came into has turned into a kind of confessional, a place where you can at least wash the blame from the soul. Behind the rack is a man with a metal jaw who kindly congratulated the stranger. He asked Haruna what purpose she visited today. Maybe yesterday's task was too complicated for her. But Harun only explained calmly. Not that came. She brought good news about the successful destruction of the den. Hearing this, Joel immediately understood the situation, but did not resist, and asked why she did not mention that Dells also participated in the operation and helped her. Haruna only denied, saying that Joel was wrong. Only the directions suggested and did not interfere in the clash. Joel barely recovered from the herd. It seemed so incredible. The first-level magician, and has already overcome the Kublo of ash goblins without assistance. Rare courage and remarkable skill. It seemed that all this happened as if for someone's desired benefit, and the situation seemed offensive. Haruna convincingly declared her achievements, demonstrating Goblin's tale as an indisputable proof. She took all the responsibility on her shoulders. She asked to give him a space of a room, because this tight one. Is you a giant here? Jal was frozen in silence, confused and puzzled, without a word in response. Intense expectation, the views did not break from the closed door of the room for evaluation. In the meantime, Haruna leisurely went home, allowing thoughts to run in all sides. The teacher stressed with surprise. As soon as the guilders dismembered the cobble's body, Jala had nothing left like capitulating. But when she appeared with the intact body of the fallen monster, it became a real shock for him. They solemnly presented the award, along with the return of all the money spent. In addition to the honored honors, Harun received the honorary title of an adventurer who opened the door to her special guild privileges. He watched the achievements of his student with pure admiration. For training it was necessary to buy a new staff, as the Delice stored only one long-worn stick. According to her, it became known. Staff is a gift from Anna himself. Bells was surprised to be incredibly. Is Han really able to yield something just out of goodwill? Maybe this girl is so close to him. Communication with Harun always gave a sense of lightness. Her sincerity and friendly attitude dispelled any tension. After inspecting the staff given by Harun, he could not but note his perfect processing. Despite her words about ordinary training equipment, the product expressed a sophisticated skill. Del, as it was started, insisted, "It is more for the masters of the old school than the work is a matter of honor, which it comes with all seriousness." It is because of this that Haruna is forced to handle the stick as much as possible. Each movement controls, carefully monitoring everything that happens nearby. Heavy, like a stone, a stick requires superhuman vigilance. One inattentive disturbance, and a strong floor will be pierced through. Only in these dark caves is a mysterious black magic stone. That is why Del built his home among the wild spaces. The desire to seize a valuable mineral and control its production completely determined its place of stay. It turned out that ore was marked by overweight and difficult in handling, so they did not find it. Loneliness allowed to focus on training. No guests, no distractions. But he did not have time to slip a calm thought, as the silence broke a sudden knock on the door. The door opened, and on the threshold appeared the one who did not want to see. A girl appeared on the doorstep and wondered if the Fahrenheit Del lived here. The question of getting to know her own teacher was suddenly caught. Such curiosity did not cause her sympathy at all. She was approached by the name Nero. They expressed a request to stop Harun and not to meet her from the threshold as if you were chatting. If it was not for the support of the status of a student, Harun would have long lost consciousness from such tension. The tense silence was interrupted by a sincere apology of Nero. It was frightened that thieves were going through the house. She stretched the cake shyly, though she had only 2 pieces, but invited Harun to share this little sweet moment with her. The glad light broke out in her eyes. Such a proposal became a real salvation after a grueling expedition. The curiosity made you ask what expedition the interlocutors were. Neri was genuinely surprised. Did the Del explain it all? After all, she still wears her old clothes on Harun. The confused Del renounce. Indeed, he did not mention that in the past they lived together. During the conversation about Harun's joint life, the conclusion was suddenly concluded. Nero is a beloved Delia. Both girls rejected her assumptions. Harun soon apologized for excessive rushing in conclusions. Having indicated that Del should present it in advance, Haruni advised not to be upset because of the situation. Bells, in turn, picked up this idea, noting that it was time to finally get acquainted. Limer is an ancient ally of the Del and the pride of the whole kingdom of Delgite, an unsurpassed commander of a platoon of magical knights. Her possession of the sword is striking even experienced warriors, and among the magicians there are no equal. The power of Limer seems inexhaustible, and every rival feels, before him, strength, dangerous, like an ancient predator. When you meet her, it is worth maintaining alert. World Dells on calling this woman a monster. Hearing this, Harun was afraid of fear even. It turned out that fear is not about Harun. The real power of the Neurus only ignited in it an excitement and a thirst for victory. Now the girl is burning with the desire to challenge her and show her own strength. After supporting the idea, the girl suggested not to postpone and try immediately. The Neurus answered cheerful laughter, joking that she would hardly believe in the appearance of a student in Del's. It was from this moment that Comgargan was among Delce's students. Surprisingly, it was for me that Neror was not dedicated to this story. Keenan seemed to be able to tell her every detail. However, the girl only confessed that she was only rumored, they say. Many young boys have recently appeared in this world. The message made it clear. Harun also appeared among the young men. The girl was underestimated, calling mediocre, so the canon took the case and personally brought her here. According to Haruna's stories, the canon initially introduced her to different corners and later decided to convey the school bases of Mae's study. The confession came sincerely. Almost nothing is known about the canon. Those times are shrouded in endless expeditions, attempts to balance between the burden of responsibility and personal experiences. The expanses of the castle opened her way to strangers with carbon-black hair. The vigilant views of the unknown immediately attracted the attention of Nero, and the efforts of the will had to restrain the sword with their hand. Only mockery lacked to give naga to these bold strangers. Excessive condescension made these young men completely irresponsible. They just move behind the threshold of the castle, disappear, in unknown without a trace. Their days pass in empty chats instead of true actions. Self-confident and bold, some even rally into small gangs. If you decide to violate the law, the knights are certainly curb. Harun warned, if something like this happens, her people will not receive crumbs of mercy. Without the shadow of emotions on the face, she replied that you will not change anything here. The answer came, and Nero immediately realized whom Del chose his student. In the class where Harun studies, you can find real diamonds, still imperfectly cut, but already capable of shining. With a smile on her mouth, the girl warned that she should hurry in business, so joint training with Haruna will not work today. Deep confidence leaves no doubt. A new meeting awaits them. Nara, in the anticipation of the future with enthusiasm, will follow the results of her hard training. In the quiet garden of the castle, Adelheid Chinatsu was alone on the bench, plunging into her own thoughts. Again, a question about Nato's chi, about her excitement for Harun. The irritation raised in the soul of all that happened. Suddenly, and without any explanation, they were thrown into this strange world, forced to study some statuses, and then also forced to demonstrate their own skills for a general review. Isn't the absurdity around everything around anger? The recognition of the juice was unexpectedly performed. It was painful with Haruna. Recently she saw a rival in this girl, a worthy struggle, and now she realized she was hidden behind a bright shell, a simple average personality, nothing special. The conversation with Harun has become so desirable right now when the illusion was destroyed. Sue firmly made it clear that this conversation should be stopped. Smiling, the girl assured that she understands everything. Her gentle joy was hiding in a simple fact. Finally, Harun was able to surpass. Suddenly, the conversation was interrupted by Joseph from Nero, who were passionate about. Joseph reproached Nero for independent behavior, noting that it was not so free to do about their state's guests. However, Nero instantly asked the counter-question. What reason Joseph arbitrarily arranged so that the foreigner was on the Delice's shoulders? Guests should be brought to the king personally, and did Joseph forget who he is dealing with now? It was at this moment that the gift of Chinatsu and Toa noted. Slowly approaching the Shinots, she carefully touched her shoulder and asked how the girl was called. However, the Chinatsu was only with great difficulty. The burden of tension and powerful presence of the interlocutor literally shake her mouth. For the last time, she was with a special enthusiasm to take her among the students. The breath of admiration captured the NSA, and the heart was killed faster. Mero was interested in asking whether these emotions caused her indecision. There is no grounds for anxiety. Joseph will certainly agree. After reassuring all those present, she indicated the signature of the Prime Minister himself, convincing that there was no cause for concern. Greeting words for Chinats were sincerely heard. From now on, it has officially become a student. New horizons are opened before the young girl. It is possible that the name of Chinats will soon shine among the heroines, the strongest in this difficult cause. Left in full confusion, the guy still could not grasp what had just happened. This is the 4th day of grueling training. A new day brought with him another challenge to the training way. The awareness of Haruna's rapid growth impressed him. The girl's progress seemed incredible, even anxious at her speed. If such dynamics persist, subjugation of the 3rd level is just a matter of time. During the training, Del cast a gaze on Harun and asked if she loses his sustainability. Maybe it is worth pausing? However, Harun said without hesitation, she does not need a rest. It seems so exhausting today that Haruna, barely returning to the room, literally got on the bed. But it was worthwhile to use the skill of a sweet sleep, taken from the mentor, as fatigue disappeared, and in a few minutes the amazing lightness returned. The pleasure engulfed him when Haruni brought tangible fruits. The girl skillfully fought the monsters and showed confidence in the battle. Achievements during training gave him a genuine passion for her success. The house shines from the order, the dishes prepared by Haruna. Every time they are surprised by the taste. The responsibilities can handle the perfect, a real hostess who can only admire. A special inspiration brings him constant self-improvement. Every day opens new facets of skills. Meanwhile, Haruna is in vain trying to impress the mentor with a stroke. The short stop seemed to be a good mentally, and while the satellites were a snack, the curiosity took the mountain. He attracted the staff of Haruna, who, and lured himself a mysterious look. Stunned, he could not believe his own eyes. Harun had already rose to the professional level of the 3rd degree. Incredibly, Haruna did not immediately recognize herself. Yesterday, exhausted after exhausting training, she immediately plunged into a dream without feeling any changes. But now the magic of darkness has reached the 10th border, opening up a completely new perspective. A chance to master another powerful spell. It has become obvious that Jujutsu's possession is far superior to dark magic. The calmness in the dream and the openness of combat skills is now much higher than during the last trip in the game. Perhaps this is really a well-deserved award for tireless workouts? The thought flashed in her head. How many new skills will Harun be discovering? Along with this memory, there was an awareness. The canon also has a 3rd-level profession. Arna turned to Del with interest, wanting to find out how much more skill is to be acquired to climb to the 4th level of her profession. Here is the answer. The path to the 4th level opens when the aggregate indicator of abilities and profession reaches a mark of 100. In the circles of adventurers and knights of such people are already called true veterans worthy of respect in their region. Only a little over half of the experience remained before the new stage. Just as much as you need to reach 100 levels. The determination swept it. The desire for the goal became a real driving force, which prompted to act with double energy and not to disappear on the way to the desired. Such awareness was covered by Bella. From now on, he has a reliable assistant in Haruna, who will put his shoulder in all cases. Belle suddenly invited Harun to put him in the hunt after lunch in order to test her skills in action. The girl's seductive proposal immediately appreciated as another opportunity to hone her skills. Side by side of Garen and Del crossed the threshold of Guild, looking at familiar walls with a new feeling of anxiety and expectation. The moon greeted Joel with a warm smile. It seems that Garuna again impressed with her inexhaustible energy. Involuntarily in Joel's head, the thought flashed, maybe it is the moment to stop looking at her with children's eyes. Elle also threw a short greeting, but no sincere words were made in response. Del voiced that Harun was forced to go out to a duel with Kabul Bao. Tired of the endless muttering of the old man, Lei was persistently asked for an assignment. He sought to go in search of the missing as soon as possible. The surprise of the old man had no limits when he learned of the boy's intention to take such a difficult thing. Del hurried to assure him that Haruna is the one who would not give up this task, and he is going to stay nearby so that if necessary, come to the rescue. Harun was warned. In the event of the slightest threat, it is necessary to leave the dwell and run away without delay. The assurance made it firmly. To betray her mentor, and did not come to her mind. She decided to overcome all the troubles with him without hesitation. Hope in the eyes of Dels came to life. There was at least one sincere heart in the darkness, which did not allow him to plunge into despair. The road brought Dels to the town of Slem, a cozy settlement located near Diana. The moon was suspicious of Della, whether he was in mind the hunt that he mentioned earlier, because as it seemed, it would be a real hunt to look for traces of monsters in the mountain wilders. Del just smiled, and assured that this is the real hunt. Instead of the expected dangerous meeting with monsters, the target of hunting unexpectedly become people. For Haruna, this news was a heavy burden on the heart. It became known that demons really want to taste human flesh. Haruni has been opened by the truth. The city has long been under the control of the criminal group of Midnight. Even magical knights sometimes turn away from their affairs, realizing that silence sometimes benefits. Suddenly, 3 strangers surrounded the Del and Haru on all sides, looking closely, and immediately noticed. These people's behavior and their appearance were not doubted. The real bandits were in front of her, and they seemed to belong to one organization. Haruni's words thrown into their address caused a clear annoyance. Despite their mood, she quietly had a conversation. If it were not for Harun's intervention, the attack on their part would be inevitable. The moon, staring impatiently in the teacher's eyes, wondered if it was time to start beating. The band was approvingly through, although they immediately made a warning. Do not admire too much, do not overcome, because we still need someone who will lead to the leader of this pack. The words of the mentor were given the essence of Looney. To catch from those who are weaker. Not her path, but circumstances leave no other opportunity. Finally, Del and Luna were near the old house where their adventure trail brought. Without any hesitation, the bandits proved that their leader is the person who guests are so persistently looking for. People were asked to go to the leader and announce that Del's Fahrenheit wants to meet him. The pitch was confusedly looked for. Del's is really familiar with their main? Otherwise, there would be great trouble for the guest. But Del's, cunningly clapping, only shrugging and charming, as if similar had happened more than once. Haruna skeptically lifted his eyebrows and quietly reminded the mentor that such an inconsistent lie could bring them. It turned out that the Requiem, the leader of the North, a long-known familiar interlocutor. However, the leader now avoids superfluous attention, constantly changing his place of stay, so finding him becomes a real challenge. A stranger appeared on the doorstep, whose confident posture and exquisite clothes were clearly pointed to the high position in the organization. Bells noticed him for the first time, but he had no doubt. This meeting was not accidental. The mysterious man was readily suggested to show the road to the bus stop. The road led them further, and Haruna immediately noted. The trail twisted, as if intentionally confusing travelers. Belle, with a calm confidence, noticed. Such a thought protected a place so that no one could get here alone. She nodded with a smile and asked his business. In response, she sighs. Everything was quiet and calm until Del appeared. In the crowd, our views stopped at Harun and immediately arose. Probably Del brought her here to put up for sale. Now everything has gone into place. Gills calmly noted that Harun was his student. I understood everything right away, but decided not to interfere. The conversation lost its meaning, and he kept in a restrained Della to leave the room. From the moment of their meeting, Del insisted. Requiem is appropriate to hold himself in his hands. The Requiem waved dry. They say the affairs today are already enough. But Del was not inferior. A look, full of seriousness, warned. If the question is not settled now, next time it will appear no longer he, but Nero. Hearing the name Requiem, his heart stopped for a moment. Without stopping, the guy made his own arguments. Actions have good reasons. He noted that they were united with the Requiem, and any changes could turn everything upside down. At that moment, the Requiem interrupted the conversation, assuring that he was ready to meet Del and discuss everything in person. A group of newcomers recently visited the city. Almost all of them were of the same age from Haru. The assistant received a question about the event that was a cause for concern. The answer was restrained. 3 days ago, influential ladies came to the city. Despite the lack of information, rumors spread. Strangers appeared in Gainal, which did not arrive with empty hands, but with gifts. Haruna's Rivnas have been delayed in Del's memory especially clearly. The images of these several girls have not yet erased from his thoughts. However, knowledge of their age did not satisfy his curiosity, so he decided to ask, where did these young girlfriends go now? The advice replied that they have now managed to take care of several girls. However, only assumptions remain for their initial amounts. Hope passed that the girls were in full safety. Requiem suggests that they have already left the protected area. Realizing Del's intention to turn them back, without hesitation, allows you to act at your discretion. Biam has noticed that the guys from Gainava are increasingly affording themselves unnecessarily. They are arrogant and cross the border. If the relentless fences continue, they will have to feel a strict retaliation on their own skin. Leaning closer, Biam asked the interlocutor if he really intends to check Haruna's power. This girl is not one of those who joke. The Requiem knows the true essence of Dila, but this time he clearly went too far. Slooned with a good mood, the Del already had on the hands and the data needed, and permission to act in these parts. It seemed that one step remained. However, suddenly the Requiem blocked his path. For some reason, everyone treated Haruna with special courtesy, which caused him surprise. Requiem explained that he would not be alone if he had trouble with Haruna, and then peace would turn away from him forever. In response, Del only shrugged and assured that although the appearance does not inspire confidence, she is able to stand for herself. Subordinate Vims assured that 3 strangers belong only to the 2nd level. However, the appearance can be easily misleading. The city is spreading talk about 5 newcomers who recently appeared among the locals. Legends go. as if each of them is endowed with unique and impressive talents. Dissatisfaction covers us, because despite their constant presence in the city, trust in them still remains in doubt. Dell's answering notes that they have hurried with the decision. At the same time, they do not resist and agree to give them a chance to test Haruna. According to William, she can challenge the death itself. Harun did not hold back the fierce joy that swept her. The surprise engulfed everyone. No one understood why Harun was so passionate. But Dell is well aware that there is no equal in the battlefield. If Maruni manages to withstand confrontation with him, she is waiting for recognition. In this case, the Dell will receive green light for the free movement of Hayanava and get unlimited access to the brothel. The Requiem only insists, at least a little more delicacy in behavior. Finally, everything is prepared for the final collision. A little time has passed, and the fight came to an end. The Requiem did not hide the surprise. Unexpectedly, he saw for himself how Haruni managed to strike a dats. After that, he announced without hesitation of the match. He did not have time to say the words of apology, as Requiem stiffly interrupted, to apologize inappropriately. In a real duel, everything decides the ability to make the right decisions on the go. If her path goes to Haina, nothing wrong with her will happen. Despite the impact, Dartz's face looked strangely frozen and unnatural. The confession sounded unexpectedly. The power of the impact stunned even himself. In fact, he was much more powerful than it seemed. It was only necessary to start the fight as her eyes turned instantly. In the look, there was an incomprehensible determination. In the full battle, the girl sparkled like a living lightning, and the next moment her eyes were flickering with a thirst for blood. It was not only about her exceptional skill. I didn't feel how to think. What was her path if she was able to reach such a level? A person who never holds strength is always fighting on the verge of opportunities. Requiem noted, it is quite natural. Even Darts always set her as an example. And now, she did not leave the alarming thought. What is waiting for the guys from Haina when they have to meet with such a rival? They wondered how Darts did with him after the battle. Did he help heal wounds? Recognition was difficult to give way, but to go nowhere, he had to admit. The pain from the strike of Haruna was simply unbearable. The incredible willpower did not allow him to fall. It was then that the Requi realized. Dats, all this time courageously demolished unbearable pain. Haruna's courage deserved praise. She managed to make him face this test, and Dell's tireless perseverance in training the girl was also worthy of respect. Such workouts have always given us sincere smiles and a cheerful mood. The joy of a well-completed case enveloped me, but Garin did not share my carelessness. According to her, if it was not for the honed art to avoid dangers, today could turn differently. During a blow to Doxa, the shadow of emotions on his face did not flash. No muscle shuddered. The interlocutor suggested that the reason lies in different abilities between them. In his opinion, all this is just a sign of his 5th level. The awareness of this truth was caught by Marin by surprise, and surprised sincerely flashed in his eyes. The path began with the darkest depths of the underground world. He was waiting for endless clashes, not all of which were threatened, but everyone left a mark. There was nothing unexpected in this, such realities of that ruthless reality. Excerpts of events were erupted in memory, as if it were time to slow down and gave her the opportunity to act confidently. There was no danger or threat. Meanwhile, Haruna asked the Dell to ask what they are taking care of now. Dell explained the whole situation, but Harun could not get rid of doubts. She did not leave the question. Why did the Knights of Nehru did not investigate? Because all this seems like the task of national importance. The Dell restrained that the Knights are probably already engaged in this business, but are not too active in the life of the locals. If they dare to go against those who actually rules here, mass indignation may explode in the town, and the forces of the Knights will be insufficient to keep the situation under control. The country's authorities promised not to interfere in the internal affairs of this settlement, and the local government, in turn, guaranteed that it would not harm anyone but slaves, and only in the territory of the town. The city has a new problem. It is for these situations that people need their grade. In order to avoid the connection between reward and state structures, the guild pretends to be a regular order by paying a reward from its own funds. Nothing of what was doing around was hardly invested in her head. Dell quickly noted, for such serious conversations, it is still not enough. Memories of the last clash with death again flared in the mind of Haruna. Then the perfect possession of dark magic allowed her to go unnoticed. Her opponents did not realize that she had already woven the witchcraft in the battle. Mastering new levels of magic of darkness, the girl discovered the art of spell of gravity, learned to skillfully control the mysterious power that conquers the space. At a critical moment, the force of gravity in her hand increased sharply. As an additional event, by touching Haruna, she invisibly activated the spell of Atlas and created a poison. A secret that the Requiem was not necessary to know. Fortunately, the Dell in time lost all the traces of this crime. Talt brings the difficult news to Haruni. In the next match, she will have to face her classmates. The smile shone on her face. Excitement and the anticipation of victory over classmates charged each cell. On the outskirts of Diane stands a majestic mansion. At the table gathered a colorful company. Satsuki, a third-level warrior. Next to her, a clever Tanaka trade. Sato, an experienced fourth-level, and the third-level magician. All of them were captured by the gambling and poker. At the table next to them, Edo, a third-level monk, settled. When mysterious noises were heard from the walls, all the boys listened hard. In a moment, Suzuki asked Edo to get out and find out what was a source of anxiety. Hardly stepping into the new world, this team quickly found the way to escape from the castle. Sato gave impetus to decisive action. Intimated with constant supervision and annoying control, Edo could not stand. After all, the kingdom was taken care of only by those who reached the third or higher level, not paying attention to the rest. Sato's decision was supported by two more comrades, but the Edo remained aside. Rather a boy for small orders than a true participant in a dangerous struggle. Once at liberty after escaping from the castle, Sato, without hesitation, chose the path of cruel power. Racketeering, robbery, and abduction became everyday life in his life. Soon, fate led him to the ranks of a powerful organization, Gainal, which, under the hard hand of the throne, was then experiencing a period of heyday and unbreakable influence. The advantage of the Trinity over the guys from the Gainal is obvious and indisputable. At the same time, confrontation with the most influential conservative organization explodes. At midnight, the situation reaches the peak of tension. If the events continue to be similar, it is likely that the whole country will be under their control soon. A day before, he and Haruna got a luxurious Trons estate, the leader of the Hinanava faction. In their view, it is here that 5 classmates Haruna are hiding. The guard at the entrance to the majestic estate was strongly stopped. It was this unexpected check that was a confirmation for Harun and Deli. They came to where they wanted. Haruni has been explained. There are usually special techniques for penetration, but now she is allowed to rely on her own sense and not limit herself to any rules. The criminals themselves gathered in this place, so even if someone dies, it will not be of no value. A soft smile appeared on his face, and the teacher heard a confident assurance. Everything will be done exactly as it should. Without a second, the girl rushed forward and, gathering all her power, destroyed a powerful blow to one of the guards. Such a strong blow threw the guard to the side. He crashed into the wall nearby. The arrow behind the arrow fell from the bows, collapsing hail on Haru. Haru stopped every arrow that flew directly to him. None of the guards standing on the outside could be a worthy obstacle for Haru. He quickly neutralized, without even making much effort. The statement was clearly sounded. The time for the words is already behind. Now there is decisive action. In the walls of the estate, the aliens have already been chatted, preparing to repel guests. The criminals attacked Tarun, but her skill with a staff was a complete surprise for them. She easily reflected every blow to the enemy, remaining unbreakable. A strict order is heard for Garin. No performance or show scenes. Such scoundrels are not even worth it to step under this sky. Grabbing the essence of the order, the moon strongly rushed to see the enemy who was still laying without being summed up. It would be useless to expect another answer from Haruna. Ruthiness is one of its key traits, and this has not gone unnoticed. They are all ready, sir. However, in this situation the girl had a choice and could show more mercy. Without any hesitation, her answer made, for her these creatures are no more than the monster, so everything that is related to them is absolutely indifferent. After the previous ones, other members of the gang appeared down the stairs. Without a second, Harun confidently announced that in a moment she would deal with this detachment. She made permission to attack and boldly launched provocations. The next moment the crowd was angry with Haruna and Della. Walking nearby, Ado drew the attention of an unusual noise from the smithy and axe, firmly in the wall. The unclear cries and noise that were leaning from there forced him to stop and look alert. The realization that it was not a regular drunken quarrel before him struck to the depths of his soul. The annoying thought of returning and calling for help was in mind, but she was instantly fading. It was impossible to hope that someone would believe him. To meet him, a picture that stunned to the depths, deciding to find out what happened. The unexpected sight was suddenly caught by surprise. The bodies are scattered on the floor. Someone's silhouette moved the stairs up, but the feet no longer responded to the call of will. Mani's gaze grabbed a familiar face in the crowd. His classmate stood in front of him. Ito Day could only be wicked and mockery from classmates. Having only silently watching their abuse, Harune's unexpectedly stopped in place, as if something suddenly attracted her attention. The feeling of relief enveloped the soul when the interesting views of classmates have already turned to another victim. Finally, a moment of rest. The thought flashed in your head. Now you can breathe on full breasts, because the threat has passed and the alarm has retreated. Nadia was glowing in her heart. Harun will be able to give a decent repent to anyone who dare to be interfered with. It was impossible to understand how a defeat from one girl became a stunning blow to them. Since then, if Harun appeared near the meal, no one has even dared to approach. It was at this moment that the heart was eating to Haruna with genuine love. Haruna suddenly appeared in front of him, and he was in vain to understand the cause of her appearance. Words flew to Haruna with an unexpected interest. Does she know this young man? The calm answer did not slow down. It is her classmate. So he belonged to the same company. In the imagination of Della, these people looked completely different. The last Atta wondered why he was in this place. For ordinary people, it would be simply impossible to get into the world of dark affairs. Aunt, frowning, he began to ask the cheetah about the causes of his appearance, because a few days ago, he disappeared from the castle a few days ago. Suddenly, Harun intervened in the conversation, gently adding that Ito usually gets embarrassed in the presence of strangers. The fear of death squeezed Edo's chest, because inaction could cost him life. In despair, the young man confessed that Sato stood him from the fortress, and since then kept near him, he constantly forced to serve, perform the strokes, and take up for any work he thought. Dels learned that the other four, a cohesive flock of hammer, for which the most expensive entertainment was to humiliate Edo. They considered the guy a complete worthlessness, so their cruel jokes became a daily trial for him. He told that the captive was held in the dungeon of the estate and should be released immediately. However, in reality, caring for other people's destinies was only a reason for him to arrange his own business. After the words of Dido, who came like a thunder in the clear sky, Dels finally realized who was standing for all the abductions. It was a garden. A moment, and before the eyes, the whole picture came. Everything came into place. According to him, the primary task is to destroy the root of evil, if everything looks like that. Sleeping him, they went on a further journey. The barely catching behind the door laughter suggested Della and Haruni that they finally found themselves in the right place. Suddenly it turned out that the absolute silence prevailed. The room was perfectly protected from any unnecessary sounds. The expectation of the attack arose even when he just approaching the room. The guard of which a serious organization should rely on was pathetic. Instead of vigilance, carefree entertainment. No responsibility for safety. Such lightness can only be called shame. With unexpected determination, Luna expresses the idea of attacking the enemy with a thumb, but the Delin resting its passion, warning not to hurry and act with caution. Without the slightest reproach, there is a determination to deal with every monster right now. However, an alarming thought flashes in the mind. And suddenly the enemies will have familiar faces from the school past? Could she even raise her hand at them? The moon noted that the level of punishment would be determined by the extent of the crime, but warned, if someone dares to encroach on her life, he would protect herself without hesitation. Grabbing for life with all his strength, Harun will not let any abomination shorten his age. She calmly noted that she would do the old way this time. Suddenly, Suzuki realized that Ed had disappeared for a long time, and has not appeared. Meanwhile, Tanatically wondered, if in this world it was possible to promote poker, the organization of such games could make considerable profits. Such a number is enough to meet all their needs without any difficulty. In fact, the company is only for fun, spending time in fun carelessness. The Natsu exploded with laughter, overflowing with sincere joy for everyone who was finally lucky enough to feel peace. But the ruthless roar, and the door suddenly flew from the loops, bringing anxiety to the idyll. The door opened with Gurkita, and Harun flew into the room, like a storm, pushing them sharply so that they thundered against the floor. The upset gripped him, because it was not Sato. However, Haruni was still lucky. It is good that she was able to kiss someone. Silence prevailed around, creating the illusion of safety, although for Haruna the air vibrated with confusion and anxiety. Its inner world was abandoned by anxious that contradicted external harmony. Even in the boldest imagination, the moon did not know that circumstances would make her so rapidly move to sharp and desperate steps. Haruni's sudden appearance before her eyes stunned everyone to the heart. Just in front of Harun immediately caught the views of three monsters, who clung into a single cumbersome and a terrifying figure that looked over the path of an insurmountable threat. Harun heard from him that in this world she was hung on the brand of mediocrity. For an irritated heart, it was a great opportunity to pour your rage on a girl. Now everything has changed. Unlike the past world, now they exceed Harun in everything. It was amazed at how meaningless human stubbornness is. After all, to grasp the hostages, that's what could make Haruna at least think. Or maybe the whole thing about the blind faith in your own decision. Having collected all his determination, the warrior put into operation a unique acceptance, the red ribbon, preparing to meet the enemy in the whirlwind of a fierce battle. Sato promised Haruni to discover a unique force that he could only sway himself. It was to become his final gift for her. With these words, the warrior filled with determination activated his special ability. He released red skin, whose tail broke out with a bright glow. It did not reach Del's, which caused such anxiety in the garden. The unknownness enveloped his soul, because the garden himself brought his own preferences to clean water. Del could only nurture the hope that Harun would be able to maintain prudence and would not allow himself to relax. The shingle has performed everything from the anticipation of future events. With every moment, the abyss between his combat skills and Haruna's skills on the battlefield was increasingly clear. It was only with the magical support of Suzuki and Takahashi that the feeling of inevitable victory became stronger. The awareness came suddenly. The creature tries to sign that the enemies begin the offensive from all directions. The Runa spell worked more suddenly than opponents managed to understand something. Only a moment, and the girl's foot flies up and the garden skillfully uses her talent, cleverly avoiding the blow that flew is directly past him. The teams were strongly heard. Everyone had a lightning attack on Haru. The enemy suddenly rushed forward at a frantic speed. Such a sudden explosion of energy did not go unnoticed for Gel. Tail is a unique ability that instantly increases the combat potential of not only the owner, but of the whole team. However, the action of magic is constantly fading with the increase in the dexterity of users. The higher this figure, the less the effect. Gal thought with great surprise whether they have now become more agile than Haru herself. With a slight movement of the staff, the girl destroyed the rival's onslaught, and his sword split from a powerful blow. The red tail technique had a lightning effect. None of the boys lasted for 10 seconds. But even after such a confident victory, Harun sincerely confessed to herself, there are many lessons and new skills ahead. The thoughtful look suggested that the technique is striking, but at the cost of it is a significant decline in strength. In addition, the skill in dealing with swords left much to be desired. Having taken care of everyone around, the young man did not cause Haruna anything but wonder. The meaning of his actions remained a mystery to her. Mercy has always been an integral feature of the teacher. It was impossible to accept immediately that it is now a real Del. Consciousness is filled with understanding. Haruni managed to withstand all the trials and not to obey under the weight of insidious blows. However, when it was time to have a real exam for humanity, she never managed to overcome this barrier. This development of Delza events was fully satisfied. In response, an explanation was made. They were not compassion, but the promise of a much generous reward for the lip. Harun persistently urged not to stay in this place, and immediately joined the rest of the detachment, as the main forces of the enemy have already been defeated. The awareness shown Harun. The throne should be left alive. Then it is advantageous to transfer it to the hands of the organization North, according to the preliminary arrangement. Determined of his intention, he promised to go to the rescue of the girl who was abducted. He called the girls to find out something important. It wakes up, and the first thing that comes into the eye is a Del which has frozen. The surprise engulfed Edo. The reasons for his captivity were a mystery to him. Del, with an unconcealed sarcasm, wondered whether he really had hope to get free on his own. Delce is currently serving him with a convenient alive. The tense silence prevailed among the listeners as the Del unfolding his story. The gang was engaged in a cruel crime. Leaving the castle, they stole the girls from neighboring settlements, turning them into disenfranchised slaves. No law for these scoundrels had weight. Everything was ignored boldly and openly. For such guilt, the death would be quite logical punishment. However now, he justified loudly, convincing everyone in his own innocence. He blamed Sago and others, they say, it was their fault, and only passively stepped behind, without interfering with anything. The unwavering confidence has filled the consciousness. It is enough to turn the blame on someone else, and the salvation is guaranteed. Transparently made it clear that in this country their weight is worth nothing. There is almost no time left. It must be resolved before the rumors will grow uncontrolled. Edo's concern also did not stay in the shade. Tells conducts interrogation of stolen girls, and in the midst of the conversation, one of them calls his name. To their feelings, designs, or actions, he has no drop of sympathy. Everything that was before has no value to Tells. They risked escape from the castle, taking valuable information, but they themselves were of great value. Those who decided to such a step have condemned themselves to ruthless revenge. Tells forgive betrayal. The awareness of the fact that it did not deserve death did not save. Such subtleties of Thels did not bypass. Gathering all together, the man suddenly released the audience, intrigued with the announcement of a special offer awaiting each of them. Each was waiting for a personally prepared weapon, and the owner suggested to choose the one that would like. With interest in the voice of Dels, they asked questions, trying to clarify what exactly the interlocutor meant. The promise made. In the case of victory over it, they will receive freedom of action, and no complications will arise. Having come to the conclusion that last time the fear had mastered them during a clash with Haruna, now challenged them. He offered to come together in a duel, but this time, without intermediaries, just with him himself. Particular emphasis is on the fact that one of the reasons was the desire to check whether they are really able to become candidates for confrontation with the Lord of Darkness. He explained his desire to stay in a wonderful physical form. It is only necessary to give yourself freedom and neglect of workout. The defeat in the fight against Haru will become inevitable. The attempt did not even have time to end. The Delice broke his life. The rest of the participants were rapidly rushed into the thickening of the battle. This time, magic will go into the business. Turning to Ado, the hero noted that he was genuinely in love with Harun. However, Ado replied honestly, her heart is already different. Dale lives side by side, enjoying her culinary masterpieces and dividing the happy moments of carefree leisure. Hearing this, Elle covered the rage. She rushed at him rapidly without holding back emotions. No power, no even united efforts altogether, have been able to defeat Elle. Once again she began to heal their wounds, filling the touch with tenderness and care. At first, she healed the wounded. She immediately rushed into the swirl of the struggle, and this endless cycle lasted until everyone was completely exhausted. Belz's disappointment in it only grew every minute. The painting resembled the young Shibaigos, who only grabbed the driver's license, and already dreamed of rushing at the wheel of the racing car. Impressive abilities and powerful potential do not mean skillful possession of their own strength. It is difficult to imagine a real struggle against the owner of the darkness with such contenders. Beginners who have just got to another world got excessively many privileges. It is worth imagining that such advantages would be given to others. The consequences would be truly destructive. Grabbing for the opportunity, he quickly put in order until Harun appeared. The dark figure of Balila, along with all the company, suddenly disappeared inside him. Finally managed to put my way around, and it caused unspeakable joy. Obviously, the influence of Haruna became the driving force that prompted changes. The moon noticed Dels of the successful completion of the order. Interested, Dels asked immediately if everything had passed without complications. The news of her victory over all Hainanai's members was confidently conveyed to him. 16 opponents on the second floor no longer pose a threat, as well as those who sat on the 21st. Rescuing life organized the evacuation of slaves. At the door of Sato, her gaze grabbed the figure of the throne. She went closer to the enemy for a moment, and then, leaving him a chance to escape, broke his leg mercilessly. Without hiding the admiration, he praised her efforts and promised, "This evening they are sure to have a warm dinner." It became known that in the dungeon to find the rest of the hostages still succeeded, and they were already handed over to knights. The fugitives, accompanied by Harun, are now under close supervision of members of the organization, Nafnik. The curiosity of the moon led her to the thoughts of the former classmate. In response, it came. They were sent to where they will find their place in the world. After leaving the humor city, Edo went to unknown lands, full of hope to finally feel the silence and peace he had long dreamed of. The moon emphasized that fate was best. She recalled that life is too short to spend it in vain. During this time, it is possible to do everything you dream of. Del thought enthusiastically. If friends at least worked on themselves, not even setting high goals, they could well beat him together. The meeting with superhuman forces already seemed to be a great accomplishment, and they wanted more. When all the troubles were left behind, the throne was at the disposal of the organization, and the team went to the host market in search of new adventures. The confession was quite frank. The sudden thirst for cooking the meat dish mastered it immediately as it had just fallen on the throne, similar to a well-fatted pig. This thought did not cause any gorgery, only a light of fun appetite. Before the guard reward, Dells with Haruna still received a considerable amount from the organizer of the Northern Midnight and even from the government, so that they would retain silence and tell anyone the details of the event. Noting the successful completion of the mission, Haruna had a maximum of effort and organized a real feast. With curiosity in the voice of Hills asked Karun, whose heights reached its characteristics after a recent battle. With a light smile, the moon acknowledged that she had released from her head the need to check her characteristics after contractions. So without delay, she decided to do so right now. The characteristics window showed that Haruna's abilities have grown markedly, and at the same time the level of his skill rose. The frustration swept Harun when the effort did not bring the desired growth of professional level. Del was calmly explained. In 1 minute it is impossible to succeed. Aryun was already in a hurry with the results. Sincere confusion engulfed it when she saw with what rapid evasion and throw they grow in skill, because these techniques were only mastered this day. Only a step separated both of the 4th level skills, although to just recently Garuna barely reached the 3rd. Usually the path to such skill requires decades of hard workouts. This time Harun only nodded, silently recognizing her indecision. Harun has shared her impressions of new skills. Thanks to a warrant, she skillfully feels the space around and chooses a place to move unmistakably, and the throw allows her to jolve things so easily that it seems like a real game. The girl's words are fully true. The skill of evasion accurately suggests the body, avoiding hostile attacks as if instinctively, and the possibility of throw gives full control over the force and trajectory of flight, allowing almost effortlessly to direct yourself in the air. None of these skills has nothing to do with her professional responsibilities, but they were perfectly compatible with the unique style of Harun's battle, completely overlapping its weakness. Armed with new skills, the moon will confidently meet any test on the battlefield. Now, to plunge into the arms of sleep, only one book is enough. The dark magic of the moon reached the 20th level. In front of it was the opportunity to master completely new spells. The spell of dark magic, Example Dies, lifts thick black smoke clubs, turning the space into a perfect curtain for a hiding place or an unexpected maneuver. With delight in the voice, Luna noted how much this magic was striking, and added that she was already suffering from impatience to try it in practice. This is how the 5th day of difficult training has passed. In the midst of the deep night, an unexpected touch pulled out of the dream. Haruna gently stuck to him from behind, hugging firmly. The Della has made considerable efforts to flee Harun from sleep, but she stubbornly remained in her dreams, not wanting to break away from the embrace of sleep. The force of full purification was dispelled, and Harun immediately returned to his senses. When asked about the reason for her stay in another's bed, Harun smiled mysteriously and assured that she had a special basis. Everything was explained by her intention to improve the charming, sweet dreams, making them even more effective. The realization came. Unlike other skills, mastering sweet sleep takes the most time. Let's try to finally reveal what is actually hidden for the true cause. The favorite dog Piro, which she pressed firmly to herself, now painfully lacking in her arms. Sweet dreams did not bother Harun, but undoubtedly. Only in the usual cozy embrace of the night the protective screen gains true strength. Harun warns with indignation. You do not laugh to treat me like a dog. It breaks angrily, then it moves with a fist on the ground. Rejoicing Haruna's efforts, it still emphasizes that redundancy never benefits. A sense of measure is important in any case. The moon confessed that the Delk became something like her father, so she did not give any weight. The confession of the moon was unexpectedly sounded. She felt a real pleasure that someone was near her. This new proximity for her gave such warmth and peace that the dream covered it almost instantly. Only one night, Haruna allowed him to stay with him, emphasizing that it is an exception that would not happen again. The wave of joy was picked up by Bruno, and having suffered a gust, he suddenly pressed Della to himself. 6 days since the start of the training camp, the Della's dream never succeeded. Haruna was constantly disturbing him, forcing him to spin all night. If this continues, you cannot dream of rest. As soon as the door opened, the figures lined up were accurately, and the mouth sounded sincerely. Good morning? This time the girl brought 3 pieces of brownie. Dell insisted that he had to try this dessert. Smiling, she explained her choice, as if inviting her sweet moment with her. A sincere smile of pleasure blossomed on his face, and without hesitation, Nero was invited to make a company at breakfast. He looked at a table that impressed with the variety of treats and generosity of eating. He asked with interest, what made Neri visit again? Maybe she still intends to discuss yesterday's events. In response, Neri noted that the rumors had already flew, and Joseph was constantly reminding her of this situation. The leakage of the secret will mean her need to eliminate Della. In fact, the visit had a much deeper basis. The much more important news that Nero brought was that she now has her own student. Looking at her student, the mentor immediately noted a clear resemblance to Haruna. This thought pushed her to the idea. With such appearance, the girl will be the perfect rival for Haruna. Invite Haruna to sparring with his student. This is the desire for her because a small competition will help everyone to become stronger. Nero, along with her student, is already on a journey, and sincerely hopes Haruna will join this company. The main purpose of this expedition is to destroy the mysterious Lord of the Darkness, which is all bearded. A detachment of magical knights is collected for clashes with the most dangerous creatures that are terrifying even with experienced adventurers. At decisive moments, the commander personally heads his subordinates and leads them to a deadly battle. In fact, for Nero, meeting monsters becomes a simple walk. He instantly destroys every opponent instantly, and once a dangerous expedition instantly loses any threat. Undoubtedly, not everyone is invited to the expedition because it is an exceptional honor. However, this event is so famous that they want to go together. In addition, Belle has repeatedly heard the descendants of prominent families by virtue of the force to join such campaigns, that they personally know what the danger could actually be. The invitation also came to the charming student of Nero, who was also honored. Haruna goes to the armory shop when Manitor, having heard her intention to go on a trip against the owner of darkness, does not hide surprise and deeply concerned with the future danger to the girlfriend. In this world, the anxiety is ignited by those who proclaim the appearance of the owner of the darkness, and many who call themselves this formidable name. Even children know about it. Among numerous self-esteem and heralds, the only true owner of the darkness rises above all. His name is Degachima, the highest lord of dark forces, which holds in his hands all the darkness of this world. In the world, they are called the owners of darkness, although these creatures do not pose an open threat to humanity. The belief in their ugliness emerged only because of the fear and imagination of people who proclaimed them by monsters. Suddenly, Gan emerged from the darkness, bringing the news of the task for the Dell. For the unexpected appeal, Dell made his apology, but Gan only shrugged his shoulders. They say, nothing wrong, because the power of the black magic that he got to him thanks to Haruna has not yet exhausted. Metal shells made of black magic ore affect their power. No ordinary stone is equal to their power. The peculiarity of this ore is the unique ability. It absorbs only one kind of force, and only the one that first encounters. Delse was concerned about whether this expedition would be too hard for Haruna. After all, a meeting is ahead with the most self-proclaimed darkness. Dels just smiles and assures that there is nothing threatened with Haruna. There is enough space for everyone. In memory, there were times when the small growth of Del and Nero almost daily ran into his workshop. Meanwhile, Del steps to a new destination. The Kvidit magical tools were stepped off to the Kvidit magical tools. This place was famous not only for their own amazing works, but also with unique artifacts obtained from mysterious dungeons. The assortment was striking. Each exhibit was a rare jewelry, and the prices here corresponded to how big the magical power of things was. Haruna's vigilant look slid on all sorts of things that discovered her diversity. Dels launched the secret of the scrolls in front of Harun, saying that they were hidden pure magic. These artifacts open the way to mastering new ones, in addition to the usual growth of the magnitude of the magician. The ancient seals inside retain a force capable of changing the course of the battle. In obtaining such relics is lucky only to those who look into the darkest depths of the dungeons, so sometimes their value reaches the cost of the whole assembly. They came here in search of scrolls for Haruna. Del asked to show scrolls with the magic of darkness, the level of which does not exceed the 5th. The seller did not show the shadows of surprise, learning that Haruni was interested in a scroll for the 30th level. After all, Mr. Della, of course, is not a casual personality. Such a girl has a giftedness and ingenuity. Road cost scrolls caused a real anxiety in Bruno. Della patiently said that such things are mostly pocket-only by the rich and the monarch themselves. The sale of rare artifacts is able to quickly turn a traveler into a wealthy person. No wonder hunting for valuable finds is always the key purpose of any adventure. The government keeps all rare scrolls under strict supervision, so their price takes off to heaven. The most affluent and the most influential magicians almost always have access to these invaluable artifacts. At the same time, desperate adventure seekers sometimes come across scrolls in dark labyrinths, dungeons, or during dangerous expeditions. Sometimes fate itself gives them exactly the scroll that is able to change the course of events at a crucial moment. It happens that uninformed sellers give a valuable scroll almost for nothing. But in this store, every product is carefully inspected, leaving no chance. Sometimes, in order to come across light-hearted merchants, employees are consciously looking for similar opportunities. Among the suggested scrolls, Haruna's attention was immediately attracted by special artifacts: the spell of poisonous fog, magic for the detection of water, and magic for the disposal of mines. These things were the most appropriate and useful for her in the whole list. All 3 scrolls were immediately in the hands of buyers. This decision has caused a sincere surprise to the seller, because these artifacts were almost never demanded. Starting an explanation of the mechanisms, the seller first paid attention to the poisonous fog. This magical creation calls on a thick cloud of poison that unfolds over a wide area. However, its power is not too significant, but the scale of the lesion impresses the imagination. The only problem is that the poison does not distinguish between the enemy and the friend. Under its influence, everyone except the mocker himself, so such a spell can harm even his brothers. The spell that the sorcerer speaks gives birth to drops of deadly poison in his palm. For his level of magical skills, it is a real weapon, but the forces of art limit the potential. Poison occurs exclusively on the hand, so keeping the proper amount of solution in the palm is not easy. Because of this, the possibilities of using the spell are significantly narrowed. The practice of suppression is a special spell aimed at controlling the victim's mind. Under the influence of the charm, the prudence leaves a person, and his ability to make informed decisions fades. Physical contact is required to work magic, and the sorcerer must have considerable force to cope with this task. The training day is over. The 7th day of training began. Although Nero argued that the expedition was scheduled for tomorrow, she still called Delsa and Harun this day. Ahead of them was waiting for a lot of weight. Sincere relief enveloped the soul when friends responded to her request. Before the expedition, the woman decided to test the abilities of her subordinates to see them. According to the interlocutor, there were too little attendees to make a real team. She noted that more satellites would only hold back their course. After all, it was placed to put an end to the dominance of the owner of darkness. And there was no doubt. Suddenly Naire decided to introduce her guests to her student, and Del immediately came to mind. Is not all this off to boast of her achievement? The voice of Naire, who solemnly pronounced the name Chinatsu. It was a familiar name. Isn't the same Chinatsu Haruna's closest girlfriend? Without any hesitation, the moon recognized her friend and hurried to rush into her arms. ACCU politely voiced her name Della, receiving the representation of Nero. With a sincere smile, Harun noted that this 3 looks like a real team of like-minded people. It is time to introduce everyone to the subordinates he chose. The 4th level of the Muno, as well as the Triants with a cannon, both have a 3rd level art, distinguished from the Dagon Knights. The look caught in Dagon's maturity and experience worthy of his years, and in the faces of 2 young magicians, a rare shaky and a great giftedness. However, in the soul of the cannon, the fear of Nero, while the Muna raised to the top, first of all, family support. She always took with her the younger, It was her way to give them the opportunity to try themselves in a real business, to gain important experience. In defense of the smallest was usually a dog, ready to drive away any danger. Muna categorically did not approve of the participation of children in such risky campaigns. They gathered today solely to test their own power in training duels. This is the explanation from it. The names of the first rivals were named. Mun and Del will come together in the ring. Having accepted the challenge, Mun confidently promised not to disgrace the honor and to justify the hope of the captain, whom his mentor is so proud of. In the family of a servant, known aristocratic customs and a strong position in society, the second son became a servant. The heir of ancient traditions that are passed from generation to generation. Last year, awarded the highest awards, a graduate of the Magical Academy proudly won a place among magical knights. And unforgettable for him was the inspired speech of Captain Nero at the graduation ceremony, which deeply moved the young man. However, misunderstandings with papers were prevented from joining the detachment immediately. The Captain Nero herself went on a long expedition and lingered on his return. Only today did fate give him the opportunity to finally meet with the legendary commander. Her noble, piercing look captivates her heart, and golden hair, light waves falling on her shoulders, gives an image of special charm. The image of this girl appears like a night flower, the embodiment of a mysterious, mysterious night. The belief holds firmly. The Del made a conspiracy with his student, instructed to watch Captain Gnarl unnoticed. He expressed the opinion that Harun should become a monogun for him, because it is the student's skill that reflects the skill of the mentor. Neri fully supported this proposal without expressing any objections. The dispute between Haruna and Manuna flared up with new force. Haruni's intention to prove that all this is absolutely painless and anxiety was in vain. He was hanging in the air. A sudden his fist was rapidly crashing into his face. The victory won Rune, and Chinatsu realized how much her rival became. Haruna, however, modestly emphasized that this result was achieved only through the joint efforts of the whole team. Haruni's triumph was announced, but the winner sincerely confessed. She would have dreamed of testing her own power in the duel with her. Haruna's request stunned the knights. The very thought of the attack is only the boldest, because even whole states are afraid to go on Captain Nero. No king will risk going against her desire. Its authority is quite equal to the influence of Prime Minister Joseph. She was said to be challenging even Desichimi at one time. But was anyone at least a moment when the captain reveals all his power on the battlefield? The new rules for this match appeared precisely because of his imagination. The moon is able to use any means and move absolutely silently. Her opponent, in turn, is obliged to remain stationary and refrain from any attacks. I wonder if Haruni will be at least one opportunity to impress her opponent. Just in case, Harun was warned. If he intends to retreat, not to find the best moment. Against her came Nair, a rival from a completely different dough. Haruni's perseverance is not inferior to Haruni, but the ability to lightly take the mountain and literally break the enemy is even more striking. There is no concept of capitulation for her. But even if for some reason she wanted to give in, the advantage is so enormous that it would not have any sense in this. Do not forget to thank the mentor for his sincere care. In the fierce confrontation, Harun challenges the powerful captain of Narubi Grove. Sparks flash when their blades are faced, and everyone's martial skill makes even experienced soldiers around. The hot breath of the battle breaks the air. With each blow, the result becomes less predictable. She explained to Chinatsu. Nero's combat sense is unique. No other compares with her. Even the owner of the darkness could not resist her. She is so skillful. I will hope that Harun will be only a minor injury. Rune immediately involved her gift. From under her eyelids, a dark smoke emerged, which rapidly spilled around the room, covering everything around a dense, impenetrable curtain. Even if someone manages to get through this fog, he does not threaten people at all. It is insignificant, so it can be absolutely safe. However, Nero decided to stay here. If such a decision is made, there was no opportunity to influence the stubborn fox. By uttering the poisonous words of misspell, Harun suggests a curse on the best, hoping that nothing will survive for the opponent that could be destroyed. Haruna's hands appear metal shells, Jenna's skillful work, designed specifically for her. Powerful shells, soaked in dark magic, Harun swarmed exactly to the target. Not. The frantic blows of the moon poured on the rival on all sides, not giving it a moment of rest. The moon mixes the poison with its stone balls impregnated with black magic, giving them dangerous weight. The strong hand of the craftsman throws her perfect accuracy. No goal slips out of her deadly blow. At first, the Nanda decided not to connect the spheres, so she began to catch them with just bare hands. Suddenly, the bullets came to life and began to move randomly without any intervention. Without feeling any resistance, the moon is confident with the monsters of the first 5th level and easily tests. Harunatu's impression of Haruna's incredible power had no limits. Del proudly recalled that she also had remarkable abilities, as she immediately found herself in this world at the 5th level. Chinatsu, with a smile, noted that before that she was already a nun of the 4th level. It looks like Haruna gradually catches up with her. Having flashed with determination, Chinatsu promised herself to do her best to bring back leadership. However, the truth turned out to be simple. Haruna still stopped only at the 3rd level, so the Chinatsu was not worth worrying. Despite the sincere love of sports, Haruni workouts are incredibly difficult. Her perseverance and willpower are fully aimed at improving the magical skills. She seeks to prove herself in the field of true battle. A close girlfriend, a close friend, understands it. The answer of Azu was hesitant without hesitation. For Haruna, each lesson turned into a real test. Barely, a school call, China was already ahead of everyone, again proving who was a real magic master here. Evidence of the unchanging reputation of Chinatsu as an exceptional student appeared again. Her talent and perseverance did not raise any doubt. The confession was sincerely sounded. Barely restraining the excitement, she eagerly sought to finally share all the treasures of her experience. Having found much more power than he had hoped, the moon enthusiastically began to teach the cheat, investing in this true devotion and the seriousness of the intentions. Almost stepping on the threshold, the guy suddenly heard Nero calling him to stop. This day is of particular importance. It is time for Haruna and Chinats to truly make friends. So Nero invites everyone to stay in her home to help girls get closer. After all, everyone went to her home and found themselves in Nair where they stayed. They faced the incredible luxury and elegance of the estate, and the numerous servant only reinforced the atmosphere of grandeur. The tea and the eyes were surprised when a gorgeous dinner was served on the table, from which only the aromas of which took a breath. The Nero invitation for dinner was a real surprise for Del. A mysterious housewife wished to share the comfort of her home under a glass of exquisite wine. From the very beginning, it became clear. Her real idea to lure him to himself under the guise of dinner or a glass of wine. Their adventurous youth was full of such impulsive evenings, which only the bitter reproaches of conscience remained about at dawn. Even more, Nero sought to make the Del at least to take a part of responsibility on his own shoulders. The view of the Chinatsu slid on the properties during the battle, the moment the truth about Haruna's skills revealed. Her own endurance levels were striking, the rare stability that distinguished the girl among others. However, no talent or skills that would strengthen this figure were found. Chinatsu, experienced in many areas, has been well understood by various skills, but even that did not help to find the right support. According to him, her potential was astounding. The girl stood almost on the threshold of the 5th level. Old comrades, Dils and Nero, slowly lifted glasses, savoring the memory of past weaving and making plans for future victories of their wards. So the 7th day of grueling workouts ended. Waking up, Neri was in the same bed as before. There was a confession on both sides. Last night was erased from memory. A long break without alcohol made itself known. Without any memories, the girls were forced to rely only on the map, trying to restore the route of their adventures. The unexpected knock on the door broke silence. A maid appeared on the doorstep, notifying Ms. Navarro about a ready-made breakfast. The Del, already dressed, nodded on the window. It was through him that he was going to disappear unnoticed. Turning to Neri, he emphasized, "Time is enough. You should hurry. Otherwise, unnecessary questions may arise." The proposal came to give it all another chance, but Neri only promised to think about the answer. It is a little time, and here the whole team is alert, every collected and determined to go on a distant expedition. He was recognized as a Della. Excitement covers him increasingly. It is not possible to overcome the alarm. As expected, the tension of the Deltas did not affect. The peace on her face remained unwavering. Reflections did not rest. No soul opened her places of the future expedition or the smallest details. Where will this mysterious correction take place, and how far away does they get hunting this time? In their words, it became clear. No soul had any idea. Everyone unanimously stated that the route leads simply to a fortress that stands near the border between their country, the Kingdom of Adelgate, and a neighboring state. The news has spread. 2 flocks of monsters have been observed nearby. Each leads its own self-proclaimed Lord of Darkness. It seemed that the Lord of Darkness exists in the world in a single face. The assurance was confidently made. The appearance of 2 Lords of Darkness will not shift the established order or iodine. The clarification was also made. According to the information received, both Lords of Darkness come from Goblin and Orcs, but represent their exceptional hopes, the Hoblin King and the King of Orc. On the way, other creatures are often adjacent to the flock. For example, Ogre or wild boars. Their acquaintance has long been aware of the existence of each other, so now they combine efforts, acting as a single force. The world is divided into many roles, and both people and monsters have their tasks. For example, wolf monsters take on the function of hunters. By reaching new peaks of skill, they are able to evolve. Instead, representatives of such species as goblins or orcs are skillfully wrapped in tools and can master a variety of crafts. The promise to meet the enemy without fear. All the opponents awaited an inevitable end. Any monster that dared to hinder, mercy was not waiting. Immediate death was waiting for anyone who would be seen on the way. Full confidence in the correctness of his own choice envelops it. To equip the camp simply at the epicenter of the former battle seems to him the best possible solution. From time immemorial, the Kingdom of Adelhoit has retained a strong alliance with the western border state Zien, uniting its interests and strengthening mutual understanding for centuries of friendship. Despite its modest size, Galgaid is known in the world for his skills in magical arts and the production of artifacts, for which he has repeatedly become a good piece for more powerful neighbors. Zarya is extended by wide fertile lanes, famous for its generosity for grain. Product exchange and friendly trade unite these 2 kingdoms, strengthening the connections between them and contributing to joint growth. Ulgaid provides Tasarni not only with provisions, but also mysterious artifacts. Their participation in interstate events is noticeable. Joint training for warriors and knights turn into real trials, and the exchange of invaluable knowledge and experience strengthens the union of 2 peoples. With tireless determination, travelers moved forward, sometimes allowing themselves only quick breaks and light snacks to restore strength. The responsibility for the preparation of the dish immediately took the Muna, but the result stunned everyone. The work was so unsuccessful that he did not return his tongue. The instant reserves calculation allowed Hari to determine exactly how much food can be used today. The night worry prompted the NAC and the Chinas to open the door and see the fascinating picture. Haruna dots next to Delice. The latter hastened to put all the dots above and, telling her version of events, but doubts and suspicions still remained on the faces of both girls. In memory, Delice died yesterday when Garen was sleeping peacefully. Nero told her childhood when, by hugging her favorite dog, she fell asleep with a sense of happiness and comfort. Those gentle moments have become warm memories that still warm her heart. Awareness of one's own powerlessness was accompanied by a sincere warning of Deli. It is not necessary to take actions that may cause quarrels or misunderstandings. So the 8th day of grueling training has passed. Finally reached the dreamy goal, Bruno did not hide his joy. Each time he stepped forward, directly towards the garrison detachment. On the doorstep, they were waiting for Janet, a fortress commander and a mentor Rai, who confidently held defense on her shoulders. From the first words, she sounded confidence. All the challenges overcome on his own, without someone's support. The team will last together. Each problem will solve on their own. Meet, here is her friend. An unexpected thing for her was a new meeting with the Dele, known to all as Black Table, who seemed to have long left the past behind. However, it was even more mystery that Janet was already aware of the fact. Janet's confidence did not sway. To overcome all the difficulties on their own by their team, the creature began to describe in detail the difficult situation. 2 groups are constantly recruiting in their army of orcs and goblins, step by step moving from the northern and southern directions. Their benches are growing steadily, increasingly threatening the rest of these lands. According to the collected data, the subordinates magnify their leaders with the owners of darkness. Both detachments communicate in a handbraid, imperfect language, and their ingenuity, to put it mildly, does not impress. It turned out that the main goal of the rally, to find a cozy place to equip a nest there and start reproduction. The locals have already evacuated. Understanding the explanations, Nehru and his friends took up the camp. Ready to test, Everyone sought to test their opportunities in business. The smoke, which risen to the sky, signaled the human presence, and the appetizing aroma of fried meat was constantly attracted by the monster. Such a cunning tactic of Nehru deliberately lured the monsters simply to the camp. Due to this, the warriors will not only feed, but also reduce the danger to the fortress and surrounding villages. After all, the enemies themselves go directly into their hands. Surprisingly, Naya was able to invent the plan literally in a moment. Once she would not be hesitant to see, without thinking about the strategy. The duties were distributed instantly. Nero had to keep the army of the orcs incoming from the south, while Haruna from Chinatso focused on the reflection of the troops of the king goblin, which was coming from the north. Everyone knew. Bells would act as an unbreakable defender. Kenan and Daganov have taken care of all the necessary preparations, so they remain in the camp. The promise to deliver fresh carcasses came from her confidently. All you have to do is grow the fire and get fry. Inspired by enthusiasm, the girls were vigorously revived and look forward to the business. The cells have been told to girls that Goblin was considered a demonic branch of humanity, known primarily by their special meat. Green skin and low height immediately give out goblins among other creatures. By strength and ingenuity, they are inferior to even ordinary people, and old age for them is a real rarity. However, the extraordinary fertility of these creatures negates all the attempts to finally get rid of them. How many avid hunters would not comb the lands of tireless days and sleepless nights? The whole thing is the frantic fertility of goblins. They are able to give birth to numerous offspring at a time, and their pregnancy lasts for a very short time. That is why creatures, which are usually concerned with only individual residents of nearby villages, often turn into a major care for brave adventurers. Among all the crowd, only the Goblin King of the 4th level is characterized by special grandeur. The crown sparkles on his head, his shoulders are wrapped in a magnificent mantle. Everything corresponds to his high position. Despite the imperfect pronunciation, this creature is quite capable of talking. Having mastered new information, the characters made a decision. General surprise covered the company when Kep and Naroro revealed their culinary talents. Movements are smart. The technique is perfect. The Chinats with a smile admitted that she did not even hope to see such abilities from the teacher. It immediately cheered up Adele, who jokingly added that it was in Nero's experience that she should be behind the shoulders most, because during their travels she always stood behind the plate. Fatigue from books suddenly forced Aaron to shout a fervent desire. She sought to receive them madly. He stated that the right moment had come to stay, and wondered if it was too hurried. After all, their acquaintance took place only yesterday. Does Harun not think that he may be in a trap? Meanwhile, King Goblin was already approaching the camp of brave heroes. The insidious goblins resorted to the tricks. Among them were twinners who skillfully clogged their eyes with enemies and hid the true size of the army. For someone, they are just a horde of monsters. But in fact, the hidden power of these creatures can be removed from the face of the earth, even a whole state. Finally, when the battle approached the climax, the King of Goblin approved the last trump card. The legendary Goblin hero came into the arena. Reflections on the human camp, spread in front, were not rest. Is it not a treacherous trap or an ambush? Which step will be correct? But the Goblin hero confidently supported the monarch. To worry nothing. Even if people ignore warnings, they will not stop their intentions. The legendary captain of Nero could become a real threat. If so, the Goblin hero will inevitably be forced to enter the duel. Dissatisfaction with the king raged inside him after such a decision. The monarch emphasized that the hero is unlikely to immediately rush into battle. Meanwhile, the orcs will perform from the southern borders, and even if there are warriors among the people, the enemy can drive them into the trap by closing their vice. The goblins of the goblins permeates the look of the hall, weightedly choosing a new path. He is forced to obey the circumstances, joins his voice, and apologizes to the hero. The Goblin hero's gaze fell on them with a clear intention to understand the situation. Only a moment, and the detachment, according to the approved plan, goes on the offensive on people. The order of the king did not slow down. Catching the essence, the ruler immediately ordered to act. It is widespread that goblin and orcs are in eternal enmity, but in fact, these two peoples have combined efforts. Their common goal is to take control of the border fortress and strengthen their own troops. All this happened with the support of the hero, who not only trained the goblins, but also made an important alliance with the orcs. King Goblin solemnly announced the successful detection of 3 enemies. The hero of the tribe immediately guessed, one of the figures among people apparently, Captain Nero. It would be enough for her to be cut off, and the enemies would lose any bravery. Once the order came into battle and attack with all the forces, a figure with red skin brightly shone among the goblins. He managed to do something that has not yet succeeded in any of his brothers. He gained the honorary title of hero and conquered the 6th level. The glory of the new goblin hero has spread at lightning speed. The unexpectedly greater horde of goblin caused surprise in it, but at the same time this mass of enemies pleased her warlike nature. From the point of view of the equipment, everything looked decent, but there were no reports of theft. It seemed that goblins got their own blacksmith. The anxiety engulfed its whole essence. For the first time I had to step on the path of a real duel. Confidence in her own strength did not leave her. The level and characteristics have long surpassed Haruna, so the average goblin has not caused her a crumb of fear. No matter how many enemies appeared in the way, a girlfriend's given to Tanatsu's girlfriend stood side by side. She thanked Del with a warm look and said she was feeling much relief. The touch of magic of light renewal gives peace of mind and harmonizes emotions. In contrast, dark magic acts, but only acute pain and soulful torture leaves behind. Haruna received words of support, because today she was destined to conquer the 4th level. However, an important remark is that the joke is over. Only full recoil and close attention to each movement can lead to victory. In his veins, energy was boiling, and his gaze glowed with determination. He was fully tuned to the battle. During a fierce duel, the Del summoned to the help of a supportive support, launching regeneration and second breath. The first of them allowed the allies to restore their vitality on their own. This unique ability is mastered by reaching the FO. Without hesitation, the first to soar on the offensive, enveloping Goblin with a thick cloud of poisonous fog. Without any hesitation, Goblin reacted instantly, taking on the magic of light to resist danger. The bundling spear is a combat speech, accessible to magicians who have reached the 50th level in the art of light magic. No living creature will remain after your arrival. She stated with delight in her voice that it was something incredible, but now her turn is to show what she was capable of. Having pulled the metal ball, the girl confidently spoke forward. Focusing all her power, a girl with a powerful attempt launched the ball directly into Goblin. The blow kissed exactly the target. The bright explosions of light broke out around. It was impossible to imagine that Garun would deal with a whole flock of goblins with a single throw. The weakening of the ammunition reserves did not leave her choice. She had to rush forward to get several surviving shells among the chaos of battle. The staff in her hands was slaughtered, rising in rapid, confident movements. The shooters had already caught the bowstring, directing the arrows to her direction, as suddenly Shinzo rushed forward and stood up for defense. Suddenly in front of the eyes put the OGR. Chinako was not lost. In a moment she gathered with the spirit, preparing to courageously withstand the enemy. With a spear that sparkles in the rays of light, the heroine is determined forward, and the savvy ogre skillfully avoid every attempt to impress them. The lightning of light magic, the hero from Dublin realized. A captain named Nero appeared among people. But none of them had the power to join or help her magic, at least something. The king was surprised loudly. 3 warmed up just in place, and it happened in a fierce clash face to face. The only one who was able to conquer this weapon has the right to end the captain of Nero. The fate of others, let him become the care of the king himself. Incredible fact. Chinatsu overlooked 3 bugs at once. At this time, a hero appears on the battlefield. With his confident gait, he approaches Haruna and tries to find out a direct question whether she is Captain Nero. However, Harun only shakes his head negatively and denies her Captain Nero. Finally, the conclusion was drawn. All its strategy is to be detached from the relationship with Captain Nero. He has never happened to him to goblins of such a grade. With a firm look, the girl stated that she would handle this task alone and asked everyone to trust her and not interfere. The Dublin hero quit the order. His warriors moved to the assigned point of the collection, leaving the ruin. Every opponent on their way was convinced of death. Their offensive was unrestrained or a step back. No pauses, just forward without stopping. In the window characteristics, amazing numbers glowed before the eyes of a young hero. 12-year-old, and additional abilities were rapidly distinguished from peers. The skill of owning a sword and the possession of flames achieved absolute perfection. Each of the skills proudly reached a 100% level.